I watched my sister Sarah stride into my parents' anniversary dinner, wearing her police uniform, her hand resting on her duty belt. She scanned the room until her eyes locked onto mine, then marched straight toward me. "Joy Martinez," she announced loudly, silencing the entire restaurant. "You're being detained for posing as a federal agent." She pointed at the military identification badge hanging around my neck. "That fake badge won't save you now." Her smirk told me she'd been planning this moment. She had no idea who I'd become. The crystal glasses stopped clinking. Forks paused midway to mouths. Every single person in that private dining room turned to stare at me, their faces a mixture of shock and confusion. My sister Sarah stood there in her crisp blue uniform, badge number 4739, gleaming under the chandelier lights, looking like she'd just won the lottery. "Stand up slowly and keep your hands where I can see them," she commanded, her voice carrying that official tone she'd practiced in the mirror since police academy. Her right hand moved to her hip fingers, dancing over the handcuffs attached to her duty belt. My mother's champagne glass slipped from her fingers, shattering against the Italian marble floor. "Sarah, what in heaven's name are you doing?" Her voice cracked, mascara already beginning to run down her carefully powdered cheeks. "I'm doing my job, Mom," Sarah replied without taking her eyes off me. "Your daughter here has been perpetrating a fraud for years. Stolen valor is a federal crime." My father pushed back his chair, the wooden legs scraping against the floor. "This is insane. It's your parents' 40th anniversary." Sarah's jaw tightened. "Stay seated, Dad, or I'll charge you with obstruction of justice." The threat hung in the air like smoke from a fired gun. My father, a gentle accountant who'd never even gotten a parking ticket, sank back into his chair with disbelief etched across his weathered face. "I've been investigating Joy for 6 months," Sarah announced to the room, pulling out a small notebook from her breast pocket. "Documenting her lies, checking her stories. Did you know there's no record of her supposed deployment to Afghanistan? Those photos she showed us from Iraq, I had them analyzed by our forensics team. They're digitally altered." Aunt Patricia gasped from across the table, her hand flying to her pearl necklace. Uncle Robert, a Vietnam veteran himself, narrowed his eyes at me with sudden suspicion. My teenage cousin Emma had her phone out, recording everything with the eager expression of someone who'd just struck social media gold. "Sarah, please," I said calmly, keeping my hands visible on the white tablecloth. "You don't understand what you're doing here." She laughed, a sharp sound that cut through the tension. "Oh, I understand perfectly. You've been playing dress-up, wearing military insignia. You didn't earn telling war stories. You never lived. It's pathetic, really. So desperate for attention and respect that you'd steal from real heroes." The handcuffs came off her belt with a metallic whisper. "I've compiled quite a file on you, dear sister. Those medals you wear, I traced the serial numbers. They're sold on military surplus websites to collectors and costume enthusiasts. That Purple Heart you claimed you earned in Kandahar, bought from an estate sale in Denver." My grandmother, 92 years old and sharp as a surgical scalpel, gripped her walker until her knuckles went white. "Sarah Marie, you stop this nonsense right now." But Sarah was beyond stopping. She'd rehearsed this moment, planned every word, every gesture. "The uniform you wore to Cousin David's wedding, I found the receipt from an online costume shop. $349 plus shipping. You even bought fake dog tags with a made-up service number." She pulled out her phone, swiping to a document. "I have signed statements from personnel at Fort Carson. No one there has ever heard of Lieutenant Colonel Joy Martinez. Because she doesn't exist. You're just Joy Martinez, the woman who couldn't hack it in community college and decided to invent a more interesting life." Our cousin Michael's wife, Jennifer, slowly pushed her chair away from the table as if my deception might be contagious. The waitstaff huddled near the kitchen door, unsure whether to continue serving the anniversary cake or call their manager. "You have the right to remain silent," Sarah began, her voice growing louder with each word. "Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law." My secure military phone sat silent in my purse, its encrypted channels dark. No one would break cover for a family dispute. I was trained to handle interrogations by foreign operatives, torture scenarios, psychological warfare, but nothing in my training prepared me for my own sister's betrayal served cold with a side of public humiliation. Sarah, I tried once more, if you just contacted military channels to verify— Oh, I did, she interrupted, triumph blazing in her hazel eyes. I reached out to the Department of Defense directly. Funny thing is, they have no record of you either. It's like you never existed in any military database. My mother sobbed into her napkin, the carefully planned anniversary dinner crumbling around her. My father stared at me with a mixture of confusion and disappointment that felt like a blade between my ribs. Sarah stepped closer, the handcuffs catching the light. I've been living in your shadow for years. Joy the hero, Joy the patriot, Joy the brave soldier serving our country. Mom keeping your photo on the mantle in that uniform, Dad bragging about you at his office. Well, guess what? The shadow was fake all along. She raised her voice even louder, making sure every single person in that room could hear. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the disruption, but you're witnessing the apprehension of someone who's been impersonating a military officer. If any of you have given her money discounts or special treatment based on her false military status, please see me afterward to file a report. The humiliation burned through me like acid, but I kept my expression neutral. Years of training kicked in, compartmentalizing emotions, analyzing exits, calculating options. But this wasn't a mission I could fight my way out of. This was family, and the rules of engagement were different here. Sarah pulled out an evidence bag from her pocket. I'll be needing that fake military ID as evidence. She gestured at the badge hanging around my neck, the one that had opened doors in 37 countries and gotten me through checkpoints where a wrong word meant death. As she reached for it, something shifted in her expression. For just a moment, I saw past the righteous anger to something else— satisfaction. She'd been waiting for this moment not just for 6 months, but maybe for our entire lives. Every time I'd come home with stories I couldn't fully share, every medal I couldn't explain, every deployment I couldn't discuss, it had all been building to this. The really pathetic part, she said loud enough for everyone to hear as she prepared to secure the handcuffs, is that I used to look up to you. I became a cop because I wanted to serve like my big sister. Turns out I'm the only real officer in the family. Our mother's sobs grew louder. Our father buried his face in his hands. The entire extended family watched in stunned silence as Sarah prepared to arrest me in front of them all on what should have been a night of celebration and love. There's something else, Sarah announced, pausing for maximum impact. I didn't come here alone tonight. I brought a witness, someone who knows all about Joy's lies firsthand. She looked toward the entrance of the private dining room with a smile that made my blood run cold. Someone who lived with her deception for 3 years and finally found the courage to come forward. The door opened and my stomach dropped like I was back in freefall training, except this time I knew the parachute wouldn't open. Marcus walked through that door like he owned the place, wearing the same charcoal suit I'd bought him for his job interview 2 years ago. His confident stride and perfectly styled hair made him look like a prosecution witness straight from central casting. The cologne I used to love now made my stomach turn as he positioned himself beside my sister, their unified stance making their alliance crystal clear. "Thank you for coming, Marcus," Sarah said, her professional tone not quite hiding her satisfaction. "Please tell everyone what you told me about Ms. Martinez here." Marcus cleared his throat, those green eyes I once found so mesmerizing, now cold as winter lakes. Joy and I dated for 3 years, lived together for 2, and in all that time I watched her construct an elaborate fantasy life that fooled everyone, including me. Uncle Robert leaned forward in his chair, his veteran's pin catching the light. "Young man, that's a serious accusation." "It's not an accusation, sir. It's the truth." Marcus pulled out his phone, swiping to photos with practiced ease. See this Joy in what she claimed was her dress uniform. I did a reverse image search. The photo was staged at a costume shop in Aurora that specializes in military replicas for movies and television. He projected the image onto his phone screen, holding it up for everyone to see. The medals are all wrong. The ribbons are in the incorrect order. Any real service member would spot it immediately, but Joy counted on civilians not knowing the difference. My cousin Emma zoomed in with her camera, live streaming this disaster to her 12,000 followers. The hashtag suggestions were probably already popping up in the comments. Tell them about the deployment stories. Sarah prompted her investigator's instincts, guiding the testimony like a seasoned prosecutor. Marcus nodded, warming to his audience. Joy would disappear for weeks, sometimes months. Said she was deployed to classified locations. Couldn't tell me where for security reasons. I believed her. Even when she came back with no tan lines from the Middle Eastern sun, no jet lag from crossing time zones, no sand in her gear bags. He swiped to more photos. Here's the truth. I hired a private investigator when I started getting suspicious. These are photos of Joy during her supposed deployment to Syria last year. She was actually at a cabin in Estes Park, Colorado, alone, probably crafting more lies to feed us when she got back. Aunt Patricia's husband, James, shook his head in disgust. I gave her a 50% discount on her car repair because she was active military. She played us all. Marcus continued, his voice gaining strength. I found receipts for military equipment purchased from surplus stores, patches from units she was never part of, challenge coins she bought on eBay. She even had a fake military email address that just forwarded to her regular Gmail. The room felt smaller with each word, the walls pressing in as my family's faith in me crumbled like ancient parchment. My mother had stopped crying, staring at me with eyes that begged for any explanation that would make this nightmare stop. The worst part was the emotional manipulation, Marcus said, and I saw him slip a glance at Sarah that spoke of rehearsal. She'd wake up screaming from supposed combat nightmares, claimed she had PTSD from watching friends die in front of her. I held her through those nights, believing I was helping a wounded warrior. Grandmother's cane tapped against the floor in an agitated rhythm. This is preposterous. I know my granddaughter. Marcus turned to address her directly. With all due respect, ma'am, you know who she wanted you to see. Did she ever introduce you to anyone from her unit? Ever show you official deployment orders? Ever have military friends visit? The questions hung in the air, each one a nail in the coffin Sarah was building around me. I have recordings, Marcus announced, producing a small digital recorder. Conversations where Joy admitted things that prove her deception. He pressed play, and my voice filled the room, distorted but recognizable. Sometimes I feel like I'm living two different lives, like the person everyone sees isn't really who I am. Another clip. The hardest part is not being able to tell the whole truth. There's so much I have to keep hidden. And another, Marcus, if you knew everything about me, you might not love me anymore. Each recording was real but torn from context. Conversations about operational security twisted into admissions of guilt. The technique was sophisticated, the kind of editing that required expensive software and expertise. My mind raced, analyzing who could have provided that level of technical support. She used her fake military status for everything. Marcus continued building momentum. Skip the lines at airports, free meals on Veterans Day, respect and admiration she didn't earn. She even applied for veterans' benefits, probably costing taxpayers thousands in fraudulent claims. That last part was completely fabricated, but the damage was done. I watched my family's faces transform from confusion to anger to disgust. My brother Thomas, who'd been silent until now, pushed his plate away as if the food was contaminated. I loved her. Marcus said, his voice cracking with practiced emotion. I wanted to marry her, but how can you build a life with someone when everything about them is a lie? When I confronted her about my suspicions, she tried to gaslight me. Said I was being paranoid, that I didn't understand military culture. Sarah stepped forward again, patting Marcus on the shoulder in a gesture of support that looked anything but spontaneous. Thank you for your courage in coming forward. I know this wasn't easy. The thing is, Marcus added, turning to look directly at me for the first time since entering, I might have forgiven the lies. Love makes you stupid sometimes. But when I found out she was planning to expand her deception to apply for a position with a defense contractor using her fake credentials, I knew I had to act. Complete fabrication, but brilliantly placed. Now I wasn't just a pathetic fantasist, I was a potential threat to national security. Show them the final piece of evidence. Sarah instructed, her hand still resting on her handcuffs. Marcus pulled out a manila envelope, handling it like it contained nuclear codes. 3 weeks ago, I recorded a conversation where Joy essentially admitted everything. She'd been drinking, thought we were alone. The truth finally came out. He produced another recorder newer than the first. The voice that emerged was definitely mine, but slurred and strange. You want to know the truth, Marcus Fine? It's all an act, every bit of it. The uniform, the medals, the stories. Are you happy now? Is that what you wanted to hear? Except I remembered that night differently. Remembered talking about the act of maintaining cover identities, the exhaustion of operational security. The conversation had been edited with surgical precision, removing context and splicing phrases to create a confession that never happened. My father stood up slowly, aging 10 years in 10 minutes. Joy, just tell us the truth. Whatever it is, we're your family. We'll help you through this. But before I could respond, Marcus delivered his final blow. There's more. I've been in contact with the real military authorities. They're very interested in Joy's activities. Impersonating military personnel can affect national security, especially when someone penetrates as deeply into veteran communities as she has. Sarah nodded approvingly, which is why this arrest needs to happen tonight, before she can destroy evidence or flee. Flee. My mother's voice was barely a whisper. You think your sister would run? Criminals often do when cornered. Sarah replied, the word criminals hitting like a slap. Marcus moved closer to the table, his eyes scanning my relatives like a predator, identifying the weakest in the herd. If any of you have given Joy access to your homes, your personal information, your financial accounts based on her false military identity, you need to protect yourselves. Identity theft often follows these kinds of elaborate deceptions. Now I wasn't just a liar, I was a potential thief, a danger to my own family. The transformation was complete. In less than 20 minutes, I'd gone from decorated soldier to criminal mastermind in their eyes. I brought copies of my evidence for the police file. Marcus announced, handing Sarah a thick folder, including screenshots of her social media posts claiming military service photos of her in unauthorized uniforms, and a list of every person I know she's deceived with her false identity. My cousin David's face appeared on one of the pages as Marcus flipped through. Apparently getting a military discount on his wedding venue made him a victim of my deception. Thank you, Marcus, Sarah said formally. Your cooperation will be noted in my report. You may want to consider a restraining order for your own protection. Already filed, Mihi replied, and something in his quick response made me realize just how long this had been planned. Emma's live stream chat was exploding with comments I couldn't read from my distance, but her excited expression told me my humiliation was going viral in real time. The waitstaff had completely abandoned any pretense of service, clustered in the doorway watching the drama unfold. So you see, Sarah announced to the room, this isn't just sibling rivalry or a family dispute. This is about justice, about protecting innocent people from a sophisticated con artist who happens to share my DNA. She turned back to me, those handcuffs still gleaming in her grip. Anything you want to say before I take you in Joy? Any explanation for the evidence Marcus has presented? The room held its breath, waiting for my defense, but I'd been trained to know when to speak and when silence was the stronger weapon. Marcus shifted uncomfortably in my steady gaze, a flicker of something crossing his face. Guilt, fear, or just anticipation of his payment for this performance. Her silence speaks volumes, Sarah declared. Stand up, Joy, slowly. It's time to face the consequences of your lies. As I placed my hands flat on the table, preparing to rise, my fingers brushed against my secure phone in my purse. Still silent, still dark. But something else was happening now. A subtle vibration pattern I recognized, one that civilian devices couldn't produce. Someone was paying attention after all. I stood slowly, keeping my movements deliberate and non-threatening as Sarah had commanded. The moment I was fully upright, I felt the atmospheric shift in the room, like a change in cabin pressure. My family members instinctively leaned away as if deception might be contagious. "That's my tax money she stole," Aunt Patricia hissed to her husband loud enough for everyone to hear. Every time she got a military discount that was theft from real heroes. Uncle Robert, who just minutes ago had shown skepticism about the accusations, now regarded me with the special contempt veterans reserve for stolen valor. His voice carried across the room like a drill sergeant's. "You know what we did to people who wore uniforms they didn't earn in Nam You Disgrace Every Soldier Who Ever Served." My teenage cousin Emma had switched from excited documentation to righteous indignation, her commentary for her followers growing more dramatic. "Oh my God, guys, my own cousin is literally being arrested right now for pretending to be in the military. This is insane. She came to my high school career day in uniform." The words spread through the room like wildfire. My brother Thomas, who'd been processing in silence, suddenly slammed his palm on the table. "The investment advice you gave me, you said it came from your military financial advisor. Was that all fabricated too?" Everything was a lie. Sarah supplied helpfully, still gripping those handcuffs like a trophy. "I've traced her stories back 5 years. Not a single deployment was real. Not one medal was earned. She's never even been on a military base except as a visitor." My brother-in-law Kevin himself, an Army veteran who'd served 2 tours in Iraq, stood up with barely controlled fury. "Stolen valor is unforgivable. Do you have any idea what real soldiers sacrifice? What we go through, and you just decided to play dress up for attention." His wife, my sister-in-law Monica, was already on her phone. "I'm deleting every photo of us together. I can't have my kids seeing me with someone who would do this. What kind of example does that set?" The dominoes fell faster now. Cousin Rachel, who'd asked me to be her daughter's godmother, physically recoiled when our eyes met. "I let you hold my baby in that uniform. I was so proud to have a hero in the family. God, I feel sick." The security clearance she claimed to have. Marcus added from his position beside Sarah, sensing the momentum. "She used it to impress people to seem mysterious and important. How many of you gave her sensitive information thinking she was trustworthy?" Aunt Barbara gasped. "The power of attorney. When Harold was in the hospital, we made Joy our emergency contact because we thought her military training made her capable in a crisis." "Cancel it immediately," Sarah advised in her official capacity. "Anyone who's given her legal access to anything needs to revoke it tonight." My mother found her voice again, but it wasn't in defense. "The charity work. Oh God, the veteran charity fundraiser you organized last Christmas. All those people who donated thinking they were supporting one of their own." "Wire fraud," Sarah noted, jotting in her notebook. "Add that to the charges." I knew something was off. Uncle James chimed in, revising history in real time. The way she could never give straight answers about her service. Real veterans don't act so mysterious about their units. My grandmother's voice cut through the chorus of condemnation like a blade. "You're all so quick to turn on family. Where's your proof beyond this man's word?" Sarah smiled coldly. "I'm glad you asked Grandma." She pulled out her phone, swiping to a contact. "I had my friend at the Pentagon run a comprehensive check. Not under our married names, not under variations. Under every possible permutation." She put the phone on speaker, dialing a number. "Lieutenant Morrison." "Yes, this is Officer Sarah Chen from Denver PD. Can you confirm what you told me earlier about Joy Martinez?" A crisp male voice filled the room. "Officer Chen, as I indicated in our previous conversation, we have no record of any Joy Martinez in any branch of the United States military. No active duty, no reserves, No discharge papers. The service number she's been using belongs to a Marine who died in 1991. The room erupted. My cousin David actually stepped behind his chair as if I might attack. She's using a dead soldier's identity. That's sick. Thank you, Lieutenant, Sarah said, ending the call with theatrical precision. You see, it's not just my word or Marcus's. The Department of Defense confirms she's a complete fraud. I want my wedding gift back, Cousin Melissa announced. $800 for someone I thought was a hero. I could have given that to actual veterans. The pile-on accelerated. Every interaction, every moment of pride, every gesture of respect I'd received was being recontextualized as theft. My family, the people who'd known me since birth, were viewing our entire relationship through this new lens of betrayal. Remember when she couldn't come to Dad's funeral because of a deployment? Thomas asked bitterly. Where were you really? Joy Vacation just couldn't be bothered. That hit hard. I'd been in a classified location, unable to explain carrying the grief alone in a concrete bunker 7,000 miles from home. But I couldn't say that. Couldn't defend myself without potentially compromising ongoing operations. Her silence is admission, Sarah announced. Classic behavior pattern for exposed fraudsters. They can't keep their lies straight when confronted with evidence. Kevin stepped forward, his veteran's bearing evident in every movement. In my unit, we had a saying, earn it or burn it. You didn't earn anything, so everything you have should burn. Every medal, every uniform, every piece of gear you bought to support your fantasy. I'll organize a proper disposal ceremony, another veteran cousin offered. Make sure it's done respectfully, unlike how she's treated our service. My phone buzzed again in my purse, a different pattern this time, more urgent. But Sarah noticed the movement. Hand over your phone, she commanded. Evidence of your deception is probably all over it. That's not how this works, I said quietly, my first word since standing. You need a warrant to search my phone. Still pretending to know military law, Sarah scoffed. Fine, I'll get that warrant, but right now you're coming with me. She moved behind me with the handcuffs, the metal cold against my skin. Joy Martinez, you're under arrest for criminal impersonation fraud and theft by deception. Additional charges may be filed pending investigation. This is insane, Grandmother said again, but even her voice had lost some conviction. The evidence presented seemed overwhelming, the family consensus absolute. Mom, Dad. Sarah continued as she secured the first cuff. I know this is hard, but she's been lying to you for years. The daughter you thought you raised doesn't exist. This is who Joy really is, a con artist willing to exploit even her own family for attention and benefits. My father looked broken, shoulders slumped in his anniversary suit. We were so proud, told everyone about our daughter, the soldier. How do we face people now? With honesty, Sarah replied, clicking the second cuff into place. You were victims too. She manipulated everyone who loved her. Marcus moved to comfort my mother, a gesture that would have seemed kind if I hadn't noticed him checking his watch. Somewhere, someone was waiting for confirmation that the job was done. Before we go, Sarah announced, I need everyone here to know you may be contacted as witnesses. If Joy received any monetary benefit from you based on her false military claims, you could be entitled to restitution. I want every penny back, Aunt Patricia declared. The birthday presents the gas money when she claimed she needed to get to base, all of it. The feeding frenzy continued as Sarah began to guide me toward the door. My family had transformed into a mob, each competing to distance themselves from the pariah in their midst. Wait, Emma called out, still filming. What about her military ID? Shouldn't you confiscate that? Sarah smiled approvingly at her young cousin. Excellent observation. You'd make a good cop someday. She reached for the badge around my neck, the one that had cost 2 years of grueling training to earn, that represented sacrifices none of them could imagine. As her fingers closed around it, my phone buzzed one more time. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. The universal distress signal. Something was very wrong beyond this family drama, but with my hands cuffed and my family treating me like a criminal, I couldn't respond to whatever crisis was unfolding. Sarah yanked the lanyard over my head, dropping my badge into an evidence bag with satisfaction. "Let's go," she said, pushing me toward the exit. "Your lies end tonight." As we passed the cluster of waitstaff, I heard one whisper to another. "I served her on Veterans Day, gave her a free meal. I feel so stupid." The walk through the restaurant felt endless. Other diners stared as Sarah paraded me past their tables, her uniform and my cuffs telling a story that would spread through social media before we even reached the parking lot. Behind us, the sound of my family's anger and disgust continued to build. By tomorrow, I'd be erased from family photos, blocked on social media, removed from wills and emergency contact lists. The identity I'd protected for 8 years had been destroyed in less than an hour. But as Sarah guided me through the restaurant's front door into the cool Denver night, I saw something that made my blood chill more than my sister's betrayal. 3 black SUVs idling in the parking lot, engines running, windows tinted. Those weren't police vehicles. Sarah guided me through the parking lot toward her patrol car, her grip firm on my elbow as she savored her moment of triumph. The restaurant's exterior lights cast long shadows between the vehicles, and I tracked the 3 black SUVs in my peripheral vision. Their engines hummed in perfect synchronization, a detail only someone with my training would notice. Unit 7-3 requesting backup for transport. Sarah spoke into her radio following protocol for a high-profile arrest. 1 in custody at Vincenzo's restaurant 15th and Lawrence. The dispatcher's response crackled through immediately. Unit 7-3 backup en route. ETA 3 minutes. 3 minutes. In my world, 3 minutes was an eternity. Entire operations succeeded or failed in less time. I tested the cuffs subtly standard Smith & Wesson Model 100. I could slip them in 45 seconds if needed, but not without Sarah noticing. A patrol car pulled into the lot faster than expected, lights flashing, but sirens off. 2 officers emerged, and I recognized the older one immediately. Officer Thompson's eyes widened when he saw me, his step faltering for just a moment before training kicked in. "Chen," he called out, his voice carefully neutral. "Heard you needed transport assistance." Sarah beamed at the senior officer. "Thanks for the quick response. This is a significant collar-stolen valor fraud potentially connected to identity theft rings. I want everything by the book." Thompson moved closer, his body language shifting as he took in the scene. His hand moved to his radio, then stopped. His partner, a younger officer I didn't recognize, hung back by their vehicle. "Ma'am," Thompson addressed me directly, which clearly irritated Sarah. "I need to verify your identity for booking. Full name, Joy Martinez." I replied calmly, watching his face process the information. His expression remained professional, but I caught the slight tightening around his eyes. 3 years ago, joint training exercise, Fort Carson. He'd been part of local law enforcement coordination for a domestic counterterrorism simulation. He'd seen my real credentials, attended my briefings, watched me coordinate with federal agencies. "Sarah," he said slowly, "can I speak with you privately for a moment?" "Whatever you need to say can be said here." Sarah replied, her triumph making her careless. "I want witnesses to this arrest. She's been fooling people for years." Thompson's radio crackled. "All units be advised, federal liaison requesting status on arrest at Vincenzo's." Federal liaison. Sarah frowned. "Why would they—" Chen Thompson interrupted his tone, shifting to one of command despite her equal rank. "I strongly suggest you let me make a call before we proceed with transport." "Absolutely not," Sarah snapped. "This is my arrest, my case. She goes to booking like any other criminal." The younger officer had moved closer to their patrol car. I noticed his hand resting casually near his radio. The black SUVs hadn't moved, but a subtle change in their engine rhythm suggested gear shifts, preparation. Thompson pulled out his personal phone, not his department-issued one. "I'm making this call whether you approve or not. Trust me on this, Chen. Please." "You're out of line, Thompson," Sarah bristled. "I'll have your badge for interfering with—" Her threat cut short as Thompson's call connected. He spoke quietly, but I could read his lips. Code 77 at my location. Confirm Protocol Echo. Code 77 wasn't in any civilian police manual. It was federal designation for compromised asset requiring immediate extraction. Protocol Echo meant potential hostile interference. "What are you doing?" Sarah demanded, reaching for Thompson's phone. He stepped back smoothly. "Potentially saving your career, Officer Chen. That's what I'm doing." My secure phone buzzed again in my purse, the pattern now continuous. Whatever operation I was supposed to be supporting was going critical without me. Every second in these cuffs was a second my unit might be exposed, endangered, or worse. "Marcus," I said, suddenly causing everyone to turn, "how much did they pay you?" He stiffened his composure, cracking slightly. "I don't know what you're talking about." "The voice editing software you used, the private investigator who took those photos, the connection to someone who could spoof a Pentagon phone number, that's expensive. So I'm curious, how much was betraying me worth?" "Shut up," Sarah commanded, but Thompson held up a hand. "No letter talk. This is interesting." Marcus's face flushed. "You're desperate, trying to deflect from your lies." "The cabin in Estes Park." I continued. "You said I was there alone during my Syria deployment, but you knew I was there, Marcus. You were with me. Remember our anniversary weekend? You proposed by the lake." His expression faltered. "That's not, you're twisting things." "Am I? Should we check your credit card records from last April, the charges at that exact cabin, or maybe the jeweler's receipt for the ring? I returned when I found out about your gambling debts." Gambling debts. Sarah's voice carried a note of uncertainty for the first time. Thompson's phone rang. He answered immediately, listened for 10 seconds, then handed it to Sarah. "It's for you. I suggest you take it." Sarah glared at him but accepted the phone. The color drained from her face as she listened to whoever was on the other end. Her responses were monosyllabic. "Yes, no, I understand, but yes, sir." She handed the phone back, her expression shell-shocked. "That was Captain Reynolds. He's on his way. He said to secure the scene but take no further action." "Secure the scene?" the younger officer asked. "This is just an arrest, right?" Thompson was already moving, his entire demeanor shifting from helpful colleague to operational command. "Matthews, get back to the unit. Watch the perimeter. Nobody leaves until the captain arrives." "This is my arrest," Sarah protested weakly. "I have evidence Marcus saw Officer Chen." Thompson's voice cut like steel. "With all due respect, you have no idea what you've stumbled into. Follow the captain's orders. Secure the scene. Take no further action." The black SUV's engines revved slightly, a subtle reminder of their presence. Thompson noticed, too, his hand moving reflexively to his weapon before stopping. "Joy," he said quietly. "I can't uncuff you without authorization, but I need you to know we're going to sort this out. Just stay calm." Stay calm. Easy to say when you weren't watching years of carefully constructed cover evaporate, when you didn't have teammates potentially dying because you couldn't respond to an emergency recall. Sarah looked between us, her worldview crashing down. "You know her. You actually know her." "From the joint exercise," Thompson confirmed. "The classified one. The one where she ran tactical operations for a week straight while coordinating between 7 different agencies. The one where she had clearance levels I couldn't even pronounce." "That's impossible," Sarah whispered. Morrison at the Pentagon probably checked the wrong database," Thompson replied. "Or the right one, depending on your perspective. Some personnel aren't supposed to exist in standard systems." Marcus had gone very pale, stepping backward toward the restaurant. "I need to go. This was a mistake." "Nobody's going anywhere," Thompson commanded. "Captain's orders. That includes you." "Harrison," Marcus supplied reluctantly. "Marcus Harrison. But I'm a civilian, you can't." "I can when you're a witness to whatever this is," Thompson countered. "Besides, don't you want to see how your story holds up when the real authorities arrive?" The sound of sirens grew louder, multiple vehicles approaching fast, but the pattern was wrong for standard police response. too coordinated, too precise. Captain Reynolds' unmarked car screeched into the parking lot, followed by 2 more patrol units. But behind them, barely visible in the darkness, I caught glimpses of vehicles that definitely weren't local law enforcement. Federal plates, darkened windows, antennas that didn't belong on civilian vehicles. Reynolds stepped out of his car like a man walking to his execution. His usual command presence seemed diminished as he surveyed the scene, me in cuffs, Sarah standing defiant but shaken Thompson, maintaining perimeter control, and Marcus looking like he wanted to vanish into the pavement. "Officer Chen," Reynolds said formally, "I need a complete report. Start from the beginning. Leave nothing out." As Sarah began her explanation, her voice lacking its earlier confidence, I felt my phone buzz with a different pattern. Not the emergency recall, not the distress signal. This was the abort code. Whatever operation I was supposed to be supporting had just gone dark. Because of my sister's jealousy and my ex's greed, something critical had just failed. Thompson caught my expression and moved closer. "How bad?" he asked under his breath. "I won't know until someone with proper authority uncuffs me and lets me respond to my actual job," I replied equally quietly. "Soon," he promised. "The captain's not the only one coming. Your people are about 3 minutes out." 3 minutes. In my world, entire operations succeeded or failed in less time. And somewhere my unit was paying the price for every second I stood here, playing out this family drama while the real world burned. Captain Reynolds listened to Sarah's explanation with the expression of a man watching his retirement plans evaporate. When she finished, he turned his weathered face toward me, 23 years of police experience evident in his careful assessment. "Ms. Martinez," he said formally, "I'm going to need you to remain calm and cooperative. Officer Thompson maintains scene security. Nobody enters or leaves this parking lot." My secure phone hadn't stopped buzzing. The abort code had cycled through twice more, each iteration more urgent than the last. In the distance, I could hear the distinctive whine of helicopter rotors, not news choppers, but something flying lower and faster. "Captain," I said evenly, "I need to answer my phone. Lives may depend on it." Sarah scoffed. "She's still maintaining the act. Captain, I have evidence." "Officer Chen." Reynolds cut her off sharply. "I received a call from the chief of police exactly 90 seconds ago. He received a call from the mayor. The mayor received a call from someone whose title I'm not even cleared to know. So right now, you're going to stop talking and let me handle this." The captain approached me slowly, his hand moving to his belt, but instead of reaching for his weapon or cuffs, he pulled out his personal cell phone. The screen showed an incoming call from a blocked number. "I believe this is for you," he said, holding the phone near my ear since my hands were still cuffed behind my back. "Sterling 77. I said immediately, using my operational call sign. The voice that responded was Colonel Patricia Hawthorne, my direct commander, and someone whose existence wasn't acknowledged in any public military directory. "Martinez, what's your status?" "Compromised and restrained, ma'am. Local law enforcement interdiction based on family members' misidentification. Unable to respond to echo priority recall." "How compromised?" "Facial recognition name, partial operational history exposed to approximately 43 civilians, currently being live-streamed on social media. Cover identity Lieutenant Colonel Joy Martinez, burned beyond recovery." There was a pause. In the background, I could hear the rapid clicking of keyboards and hushed, urgent voices. The command center was in crisis mode. "Martinez Operation Sandcastle just went dark. We lost contact with Reeves and Chen 14 minutes ago. Your linguistic specialist skills were critical for the extraction protocol." My blood ran cold. Reeves and Chen were deep cover in a situation I couldn't even think about without classified clearance. Without someone to interpret the regional dialect and coded messages, they were effectively blind and mute in hostile territory. "Ma'am, if you can coordinate with local authorities to release me..." "Already in motion," put the captain back on. I nodded to Reynolds, who took his phone back. His face went through several shades of pale as he listened to whatever Colonel Hawthorne was telling him. His responses were clipped. "Yes, ma'am, understood, immediately." He handed the phone to Thompson. "She needs to speak with you, too." While Thompson received his orders, Reynolds turned to Sarah with an expression that mixed anger, disappointment, and fear. "Officer Chen, do you have any idea what you've done?" "I've arrested a criminal," Sarah replied, but her voice wavered. "The evidence clearly shows—" "The evidence, D," Reynolds interrupted, "shows that you've compromised an active federal operation and potentially cost the lives of 2 deep-cover operatives. Your sister isn't just military Chen. She's part of a joint task force so classified that most generals don't know it exists." Marcus tried to edge toward the parking lot exit, but one of Reynolds' officers stepped into his path. "Sir, you need to remain here." "This is kidnapping," Marcus protested. "I'm calling my lawyer." "Call whoever you want," Reynolds replied. "But you're not leaving until federal authorities clear you. And given what Officer Chen just told me about edited recordings and false evidence, I'd be very careful about what you say next." Thompson finished his call and immediately moved to me. "Captain, I've been ordered to remove the restraints immediately." "Do it," Reynolds confirmed. As Thompson unlocked the handcuffs, I saw the first of the real response team arriving. The black SUVs I'd noticed earlier suddenly came alive, doors opening in synchronized precision. Men and women in dark tactical gear emerged, weapons discreet, but ready. Not military exactly, not CIA precisely, but something in between. My hands free, I immediately reached for my phone. The screen showed 17 missed emergency calls, 43 encrypted messages, and a priority override notification that made my stomach clench. "I need a secure location to make a call," I told Reynolds. "Your people are setting up in the restaurant's back office," he replied. "They've already evacuated the staff." I started toward the building, but Sarah grabbed my arm. "Joy, wait, I don't understand. If you're really military, why didn't you just tell me? Why all the secrecy?" For the first time since she'd started this nightmare, I looked at my sister with something other than operational detachment. Because the kind of military I am doesn't get to tell anyone, Sarah. Not family, not friends, not even other military. The work I do only succeeds if nobody knows I exist. But Mom knows exactly what she's allowed to know and not one word more. She signed a security agreement 8 years ago. So did Dad, though he doesn't remember because that was part of the agreement. Sarah's face crumpled. "I thought Marcus said—" "Marcus?" I said coldly, looking at where he stood surrounded by federal agents, "was paid to say exactly what someone wanted you to hear. You were so eager to bring me down that you never questioned why an ex-boyfriend would suddenly appear with perfectly edited evidence and a story that hit every one of your insecurities." Commander Walsh, the lead federal agent, approached us. "Ms. Martinez, we need you inside now. The situation is deteriorating rapidly." I nodded, then looked back at Sarah one more time. "You wanted to arrest me for stolen valor. I've earned every medal they'll never let me wear in public. I've bled in places that don't exist on maps. I've saved lives you'll never know were in danger. And because of your jealousy, 2 of my colleagues might die tonight." The weight of my words hit her like physical blows. She released my arm, stepping back as if burned. Inside the restaurant, chaos had been replaced by efficient operational control. The back office had been transformed into a mobile command post. Secure laptops linked to satellite uplinks, encrypted communication gear, and tactical displays showing real-time intel from around the globe. Martinez, technical specialist Rodriguez, called out, "Thank God, we've been trying to crack their emergency beacon, but it's in heavy dialect. None of our other linguists can parse it." I slid into position at the communications station, slipping on headphones as naturally as breathing. The static-filled transmission flooded my ears, Pashto mixed with regional dialect, coded references layered with local slang. To anyone else, it would be meaningless noise. To me, it was Reeves screaming for help. "Contact established." I announced, my fingers flying over the keyboard. "Their pinned-down grid reference." I translated the coded location. Safe house compromised. Chen's injured gunshot wound to the left shoulder. Local security forces are sweeping building by building. They need immediate extraction. Colonel Hawthorne's voice came through the secure link. Can you guide them out? Already on it, ma'am. I switched to transmit, speaking in the same dialect mix Reeves had used. My words were careful, precise, layered with meaning that would sound like local chatter to anyone intercepting. Turn left at the blue door. Wait for the evening call to prayer. The bread seller is friendly. Each phrase carried tactical instructions hidden in cultural context. Through the office window, I could see Captain Reynolds dealing with my family. They'd been corralled into one section of the dining room, federal agents taking statements while ensuring nobody left. Sarah sat alone at a table, her head in her hands. Marcus was in custody. His phone confiscated, his confident demeanor shattered. Sterling 77, this is Desert 3. Reeves' voice crackled through the static. Following your lead, package is mobile but compromised. Request immediate dust-off at alternate site. Copy Desert 3. Rerouting extraction team to grid 79 Alpha. Medical standing by. Keep package stable. My fingers danced across multiple keyboards, coordinating assets half a world away while sitting in a Denver restaurant. Satellite imagery, drone feeds, local intelligence reports all flowing through my station as I guided 2 wounded operatives through hostile streets, using nothing but words and wisdom. Chen's lost a lot of blood. Reeves reported, his breathing labored. I don't think... Desert 3, you listen to me, I commanded in rapid-fire dialect. You're 3 blocks from safety. Chen's too stubborn to die in some back alley. Follow my voice home. The next 12 minutes felt like 12 hours. Turn by turn, shadow by shadow, I talked them through the urban maze. Local patrols passed within meters of their position twice, but the route I'd chosen used cultural blind spots, places where traditional behavior patterns created natural concealment. Visual on extraction point. Reeves finally gasped. Birds touching down. We're going home. The command center erupted in restrained celebration. Another successful extraction, another disaster averted. But the cost of those 12 minutes would ripple through multiple operations. Our covers blown, safe houses, compromised years of careful cultivation, destroyed. All because my sister couldn't stand living in my shadow. Commander Walsh appeared at my shoulder. Outstanding work, Martinez. But we need to discuss the situation outside. Your family represents a significant security breach. I pulled off the headphones, exhaustion hitting me like a wave. What are our options? Limited. Your sister's arrest attempt is already trending on social media. Your cousin's live stream has been viewed over 1 million times. We're running damage control, but the bell can't be unrung. Through the window, I saw federal agents collecting phones from my family members. Standard procedure, all recordings would be erased, all posts deleted, all evidence of tonight's events scrubbed from existence. But memories couldn't be deleted as easily as digital files. Ma'am, an agent approached Walsh. The police captain is asking to speak with you, says it's about Officer Chen's status. Walsh looked at me. She's your sister. This is your call. My secure phone rang before I could answer. The display showed a call from the highest levels of operational command. Whatever happened next would reshape not just my career, but my entire family's future. As I reached for the phone, I caught sight of Sarah through the window. She was staring at the command center we'd created, watching me work with an expression of dawning comprehension. The sister she'd tried to humiliate was someone she'd never imagined could exist. Sterling 77. I answered the phone. Ready for orders. The voice on the secure line belonged to General Catherine Morrison, head of Joint Special Operations Intelligence, a position that technically didn't exist in any organizational chart the public would ever see. Her words were crisp, each syllable carrying the weight of decisions that shaped global security. Martinez, I've been briefed on the situation. Reeves and Chen are safely aboard the extraction aircraft. Your linguistic navigation saved their lives and preserved intelligence worth approximately $14 million in operational development. Thank you, ma'am. Just doing my job. A job that's now been compromised by a family member's vendetta. Her tone could have frozen helium. I'm looking at social media analytics. Your cousin's live stream hit 3 million views before we could shut it down. The phrase, stolen valor arrest, is trending nationally. Through the office window, I watch Captain Reynolds in animated discussion with Commander Walsh. His body language screamed discomfort, a local cop suddenly thrust into the deep end of national security. Ma'am, about my sister. Officer Sarah Chen, badge number 4739, Denver Police Department. 3 commendations, 1 complaint for excessive zeal in pursuit of suspects. Currently in her 3rd year of service. The general paused. Also, currently facing potential charges for interference with federal operations violation of the Espionage Act and about 17 other crimes we could creatively apply. My throat tightened. Sarah had no idea how close she was to disappearing into a federal facility where lawyers couldn't reach. However, Morrison continued, we have a more pressing concern. Mr. Marcus Harrison's connections are proving interesting. The money trail leads to accounts we've been monitoring for 18 months. Your ex-boyfriend appears to have been recruited by foreign intelligence specifically to target you. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. The sudden reappearance after 6 months of silence. The sophisticated evidence fabrication. The perfect timing to exploit Sarah's jealousy. Marcus hadn't just betrayed me, he'd been weaponized against me. Martinez, I need you to step outside and handle your sister. Captain Reynolds has been briefed on what he's allowed to know. Your current cover is blown regardless, so use your judgment on disclosure. But we need Officer Chen's cooperation for damage control. Understood, ma'am. And Martinez, your sister's career, freedom, and possibly her life depend on how the next hour goes. No pressure. The line went dead. I stood slowly feeling the weight of too many secrets, too many lies told for the right reasons, too many sacrifices made in shadows. Rodriguez handed me a fresh earpiece standard protocol for operatives entering potentially hostile negotiations. The Denver night had grown colder while I'd been saving lives half a world away. The parking lot looked like a federal convention. Black SUVs, unmarked sedans, and enough antennas to contact Mars. My family remained corralled inside their celebration. Dinner transformed into an interrogation scene. Captain Reynolds met me at the door, his expression professionally neutral. Ms. Martinez, or should I say, Lieutenant Colonel, Joy is fine, Captain. Thank you for your intervention. He smiled grimly. 23 years on the force, and I've never had the Pentagon, State Department, and something called the Defense Clandestine Service all call about the same arrest. Your sister has no idea what she stepped in. Where is she? Patrol car. Technically still under her own arrest authority, which is ironic. She's refused to speak since watching you work in there. I think reality hit hard. I found Sarah exactly where Reynolds indicated, sitting in the back of her own patrol car with the door open. Her uniform was rumpled, her carefully styled hair disheveled from running her hands through it. She looked up as I approached, and I saw something I'd never seen in my accomplished, confident sister, fear. Jojo, Not here, I interrupted, glancing meaningfully at the recording equipment in her vehicle. Walk with me. She followed meekly, a reversal of our earlier dynamic. We moved away from the vehicles, finding relative privacy in the shadow of the restaurant's delivery bay. The federal perimeter gave us space but maintained visual contact standard protection protocol for a compromised asset. Is it true? Sarah asked quietly. Everything that Captain said. The classified operations, the joint task force, Yes. The simple confirmation seemed to break something in her. God, Joy, I almost got people killed. They said 2 operatives were trapped because of what I did. Because you couldn't answer your phone while I was grandstanding with those cuffs. They made it out, I assured her. Barely, but they're alive. No thanks to me. Tears tracked down her face, smearing her minimal makeup. I was so jealous, so angry. You were always the special one, the one with stories, the one Mom and Dad bragged about. When Marcus came to me with that evidence, I wanted it to be true. I wanted you to be a fraud so badly that I didn't even verify his claims properly. Sarah, I violated every procedure. She continued the words pouring out like a confession. I should have gone through proper channels, should have contacted military authorities directly instead of trusting some Pentagon phone number Marcus provided. Should have recognized the signs of fabricated evidence. But I was so focused on finally being the hero, on exposing you. Her voice cracked completely. They're going to arrest me, aren't they? The federal agents. I'm going to prison for treason or something. I could have let her stew in that fear. Part of me, the part still angry about the humiliation the blown cover the danger to my colleagues, wanted to. But I heard Colonel Hawthorne's voice in my memory. The hardest battles aren't against enemies. They're for the hearts of those who should be allies. That depends, I said carefully, on what happens next. She looked up, hope flickering in her eyes. What do you mean? Sarah, what I'm about to tell you requires a security oath. Not the kind you swore as a police officer, but something binding at a federal level. Break it and prison will be the least of your concerns. Do you understand? She nodded rapidly. Yes, anything. I'll do anything to fix this. I activated my earpiece with a subtle touch. Control this is Sterling 77, requesting permission for limited disclosure under Operation Firebreak protocols. Commander Walsh's voice responded immediately. Granted, Level 3 disclosure authorized. Witness is to be considered provisional asset pending full debrief. Taking a deep breath, I began. 8 years ago, I was recruited out of military intelligence for a program that doesn't officially exist. We're not CIA, not military, not FBI, we're the gaps between them. When regular channels fail or can't be acknowledged, we act. Sarah listened with the intensity of someone whose world was reshaping with each word. The work requires deep cover, often for years. The Joy Martinez, you know, the sister who misses holidays, who can't explain her absences, who deflects questions about her service, that's all operational necessity. Every vague answer, every missed family event, every story I couldn't share was another mission, another life saved, or threat neutralized. But the medals are real, everyone. But most are classified beyond any database you could access. The Purple Heart your forensics team couldn't trace. Earned it in a country we were never officially in for an operation that never officially happened. The scars I told you were from a training accident shrapnel from a car bomb in a city that doesn't appear on any deployment roster. My sister sank onto a concrete barrier, the weight of understanding crushing her bravado. Marcus knew. Somehow he knew exactly how to play me. Marcus was professionally trained to play you. The investigation team found payments totaling $200,000 over 6 months. His handler identified your psychological profile as the perfect pressure point to compromise me. Jealous enough to act positioned with law enforcement authority and too proud to verify through proper channels. I'm an idiot, she whispered. No, I corrected. You're human, and that humanity is what's going to save you now. She looked up confused. Save me? I crouched down to her eye level using the same tone I'd used to guide Reeves and Chen through hostile territory. Sarah, the people Marcus works for, they're not done. Exposing me was just phase 1. Phase 2 involves using the chaos to extract information from other sources. And right now, you're uniquely positioned to help us stop them. How? By doing exactly what they expect. You're going to continue playing the betrayed sister, the righteous cop who exposed a fraud. But you'll be doing it under federal guidance, helping us identify and neutralize other attempts to compromise our operations. Her eyes widened. You want me to be a double agent? I want you to be a hero, I corrected. The real kind. The kind nobody ever knows about. The earpiece crackled. Martinez, we have movement. Harrison's lawyer just arrived and he's not local. Facial recognition puts him as a known foreign intelligence legal asset. Copy that, I responded, then focused back on Sarah. Decision time, sister. Help us fix this or face the consequences of your actions alone. What's it gonna be? Sarah stood slowly straightening her uniform with hands that barely shook. The jealousy and resentment that had poisoned her for years seemed to drain away, replaced by something harder and more useful determination. Tell me what you need me to do. For the first time since she'd slapped those cuffs on me, I smiled. First, we're going to walk back to that patrol car. You're going to maintain the act, the successful cop who caught a fraud. Then you're going to process me according to standard procedure right up until we reach a certain intersection. That's where things get interesting. And Marcus. Marcus is about to learn what happens when you attack America's shadow warriors. My smile turned predatory. He thinks he won, that his handlers got what they wanted. He's wrong. He just gave us the opening we've been waiting for to roll up his entire network. We started walking back toward the chaos side by side for the first time in years. As we approached the patrol car, Sarah muttered under her breath, "Joy, I'm sorry for everything." "I know," I replied simply. "Now let's go save the world, together this time." Captain Reynolds watched us approach, his expression unreadable. Behind him, Marcus was arguing with his high-priced lawyer, gesticulating wildly. He had no idea the trap was already closing, that every word he spoke was being analyzed, every contact traced, every financial transaction mapped. The game had changed, but it was far from over. And now I had an unexpected ally in my sister, the cop who'd tried to arrest me and ended up recruited into a war she never knew existed. Captain Reynolds ushered us into a private conference room he'd commandeered from the restaurant management. The space felt too small for the magnitude of what was about to unfold. He closed the door, activated a small device that would defeat any listening equipment, and turned to face us with the expression of a man about to juggle live grenades. "Before we begin," Reynolds said formally, "I need everyone to understand that what's discussed in this room falls under the National Security Act. Disclosure of any information shared here is punishable by up to life imprisonment. Officer Chen, do you understand?" Sarah's voice was steady despite her pallor. "I understand, sir." "Ms. Martinez." Reynolds continued, "The federal authorities have asked me to facilitate a controlled disclosure. Given the number of civilians who witnessed tonight's events, we need to establish a narrative that protects ongoing operations while satisfying public curiosity. Your handler suggested you might have ideas." I did. Years of cover work had taught me that the best lies were mostly truth, just carefully edited. "Captain, we need to clear the room of everyone except essential personnel. Just you, Officer Chen, and myself for now." Reynolds nodded, dismissing the two federal agents who'd been standing by. Once alone, I moved to the window, watching the controlled chaos outside. Marcus was being loaded into an unmarked vehicle, his expensive lawyer trailing behind, cell phone pressed to his ear. He wouldn't reach anyone who could help. All his numbers were now routing through NSA intercepts. Sarah. I began turning back to face my sister. What I'm about to show you can't be unseen. It will fundamentally change how you view not just me, but our entire national security apparatus. Are you prepared for that? She straightened in her chair. I need to know. I need to understand what I almost destroyed. I reached into my jacket, the one Sarah had been so eager to search, and withdrew a leather folder most people would dismiss as a passport holder. Inside, however, was an identification card that few Americans knew existed. The holographic seal shifted in the light, revealing layers of security features that made standard military IDs look like library cards. Joint Special Operations Command Tier 1, Linguistic Asset. Reynolds read aloud, his voice catching slightly. Security clearance level. I don't even recognize these designations. You wouldn't, I confirmed. Only about 300 people in the entire government are cleared to know these levels exist. I'm what's known as a ghost translator, someone who operates in denied areas, providing real-time linguistic support for operations that can't fail. Sarah leaned forward, studying the ID. The photo. It's you, but different. Younger, but also harder. taken after my third deployment to a place that doesn't officially exist. 2 weeks after this photo, I helped extract a defecting nuclear scientist from a facility that wasn't supposed to have nuclear capabilities. My language skills were the only reason we knew which questions to ask, which lies he was telling, which truths he was hiding. "But why all the secrecy?" Sarah asked. "Why couldn't you just say you were military intelligence?" Captain Reynolds answered before I could. "Because regular military intelligence appears in databases. They have records, official postings, traceable careers. What your sister does, it requires not existing. Am I right?" I nodded. My official military record shows an honorable discharge after 4 years as a translator at various bases. Competent service, nothing special. That person effectively died the day I was recruited for this program. Everything since has been legend cover identities built and burned as needed. "The Marcus operation," Sarah said slowly, "he didn't just randomly decide to target you." "No, we've been tracking his handler's network for 2 years. They specialize in compromising military families, looking for pressure points to turn or expose assets. When our relationship ended, they saw an opportunity. They knew about your jealousy. They'd been monitoring our family communications for months." Sarah's face went white. "Our phones, emails." "Only after Marcus entered the picture. He was their access point. Every time he visited, he planted malware. Every conversation you had with him was recorded, analyzed, fed back to perfect his approach. They knew exactly which buttons to push to make you act." Reynolds' phone buzzed. He checked it, frowned, then handed it to me. The message was from Commander Walsh. "Harrison just gave up his handler to his lawyer. Lawyer doesn't know we're listening. Moving to phase 2. "What's phase 2? Sarah asked, reading my expression. "Now that Marcus thinks he's protected by attorney-client privilege, he'll try to contact his handler for extraction. Every move he makes reveals another node in their network. By morning, we'll have rolled up cells in 6 cities. "Because I arrested you," Sarah said wonderingly. "My screw-up is actually helping." "Unintentionally, yes, but we need to control the narrative before their damage control kicks in. Captain, how much can your department sell? The officer exposes military fraud angle without revealing the truth." Reynolds considered. "The initial arrest video is already viral. We can't walk that back, but we can control what happens next. Officer Chen continues the investigation, discovers irregularities in Harrison's background, uncovers a larger fraud ring targeting military families. She becomes the hero cop who stumbled onto something bigger than stolen valor." "I'd need to lie to everyone," Sarah said quietly. "My colleagues, the media, our family." "Welcome to my world," I replied without sympathy. "Except your lies will last weeks, maybe months. Mine are permanent." A knock interrupted us. Thompson's voice came through the door. "Captain, the feds need Ms. Martinez. Something about an urgent linguistic issue." I stood, but Sarah caught my arm. "Joy, the family, Mom and Dad, everyone, they think you're a fraud now. How do we fix that?" "We don't," I said simply. "They're safer believing the lie. The people who targeted me through Marcus won't hesitate to use family again. Their disappointment protects them." "But, Sarah, I've missed 8 Christmases, 5 of Dad's birthdays, and our brother's wedding reception because I was preventing attacks you'll never hear about. I've accepted that my family thinks I'm selfish, unreliable, possibly unstable. It's a small price for keeping them safe." Reynolds stood as well. "For what it's worth, Ms. Martinez, this country owes you more than it can ever repay. Respectfully, Captain, this country doesn't even know I exist, and that's how it has to stay." We filed out of the conference room to find the federal presence had doubled. Whatever Marcus had revealed was causing ripples. Commander Walsh approached immediately, her expression urgent. "Martinez, we need you on comms. Harrison's handler is trying to activate sleeper assets. They're using a dialect variant we haven't cracked. If they succeed in their activation protocol—" "On it," I said already, moving toward the mobile command center. But I paused at the door, looking back at Sarah. She stood with Reynolds, looking lost but determined. Our eyes met across the chaos and she nodded once. Not forgiveness that would take time, but understanding and maybe the beginning of the respect I'd never thought I'd earn from her. Martinez, Walsh called urgently. I turned away from my sister and stepped back into the shadows where I belonged. Behind me, I heard Reynolds beginning to coach Sarah on her new role. She'd play the hero cop who'd exposed a fraud ring. I'd remain the disgraced sister who'd been caught in her lies. The truth was a luxury we couldn't afford. But for the first time in 8 years, one member of my family knew who I really was. It wasn't much, but it was more than I'd ever hoped for. Inside the command center, the screens showed a linguistic puzzle that would determine whether 6 cities woke up to terrorist attacks tomorrow. I slipped on the headphones and got to work letting Joy Martinez the fraud disappear as Sterling 77 took her place. Outside, my sister began weaving the lies that would protect us all. We were both serving our country now, one in uniform, everyone could see, one in shadows, no one would acknowledge. The real identity wasn't the badges we wore or the stories we told. It was the sacrifice we made in silence, the truth we swallowed to keep others safe, the family we lost to protect the families we'd never meet. As I began decoding the enemy's transmission, I allowed myself one moment of dark satisfaction. Marcus thought he'd destroyed me by exposing my lies. Instead, he'd given me the perfect cover, and my sister an unexpected purpose. Sometimes the best victories were the ones that looked like defeats. The mobile command center hummed with controlled urgency as I worked through the encrypted dialect. Each word decoded revealed another piece of the activation protocol sleeper assets in 6 major cities waiting for the green light. My fingers flew across the keyboard, parsing linguistic patterns that would sound like grocery lists to untrained ears, but contained targeting data for soft infrastructure. "Contact," Rodriguez called out. "We've got movement at the tertiary site." On the main screen, satellite imagery showed heat signatures converging on a warehouse in Detroit. Another window displayed intercepted communications from cells in Miami, Los Angeles, and Seattle. The attack Marcus's handler tried to activate was ambitious coordinated strikes designed to look like random violence, but calculated to cripple emergency response systems. The door burst open and Commander Walsh entered with 3 people I recognized from the Pentagon's most classified briefings. Their presence here meant the situation had escalated beyond even what I'd suspected. "Martinez," the lead figure said without preamble. She was Director Angela Foster from the Defense Clandestine Service, someone whose name appeared on documents that self-destructed after reading. "We have a bigger problem. The Harrison operation wasn't just about exposing you. They've been mapping our entire linguistic asset network through family connections." My blood chilled. There were only 47 operatives with my classification level worldwide. If they'd identified even half of us through our families, how many are compromised? 17 confirmed, possibly more. Your exposure was meant to be the trigger, make us pull back our assets for security review, creating gaps they could exploit. Except Officer Chen moved faster than they anticipated. Through the window, I saw military vehicles arriving. Not the subtle SUVs from earlier, but armored personnel carriers and a mobile communications rig that screamed national emergency. Whatever was happening had passed the point of discreet intervention. "Ma'am," Walsh addressed Director Foster. "Local law enforcement is asking questions. The media blackout won't hold much longer with this level of visible response." Foster turned to me. "Martinez, your sister's arrest video has been viewed 17 million times in the last hour. The internet is dissecting every frame, identifying everyone present. We're tracking at least 43 unauthorized recordings from different angles. Your family members are being doxxed on social media as we speak." I closed my eyes, seeing the disaster multiplying. Every person at that anniversary dinner was now a potential target, their faces and names spreading across the dark web like digital wildfire. "Immediate extraction and relocation," I suggested. "For 43 civilians, impossible without raising more flags. No, we need a different approach." Foster moved to the tactical display. We're going to make your exposure work for us. Operation Firebreak is now active. Firebreak. I'd heard whispers of the protocol, a last resort measure when operational security failed catastrophically. Instead of denying or hiding, we'd flood the zone with so much misinformation that truth became indistinguishable from fiction. You want me to be the face of it? I said, understanding immediately. Precisely. Joy Martinez, the delusional woman who pretended to be special forces, becomes an internet sensation. We'll feed the narrative, let the conspiracy theorists run wild. Within 48 hours, there will be so many fake military fraud stories circulating that real intelligence will be dismissed as more internet nonsense. It was brilliant and brutal. My reputation wouldn't just be damaged, it would be obliterated, turned into a meme, a cautionary tale about stolen valor in the digital age. But it would protect the other 46 operatives and their families. What about the active threat, the sleeper cells? Being neutralized as we speak thanks to your decryption. But Harrison's handler is still at large and they know we're onto them. They'll accelerate whatever secondary plans they have. Walsh's tablet chimed. She read the update and her face went grim. We have a problem. Harrison's lawyer just filed an emergency motion claiming his client was unlawfully detained by vigilante military impersonators. He's demanding immediate release and threatening to go to the media with claims of a government cover-up. Let him, Foster said coldly. It feeds our narrative. Delusional woman has equally delusional supporters who detained an innocent man. Officer Chen was just doing her job, got caught up in family drama that spiraled out of control. Through it all, I kept working on the linguistic analysis. The dialect patterns were revealing more than just attack plans. They showed communication nodes, trainer locations, recruitment methods. Every parsed phrase was another thread in a web spanning 12 countries. Martinez. Foster continued, "We need you to go back out there. Play the broken woman, the exposed fraud. Your sister will maintain her role as the officer who uncovered the truth. Your family will believe you've been lying to them for years. Can you handle that?" "I've handled worse, ma'am." "No," she said quietly. "You haven't. Bullets and torture are clean compared to watching your family turn their backs on you, but this is what we're asking." A commotion outside caught our attention. On the security monitors, I saw my parents arguing with federal agents demanding to see me. My mother was crying, my father's face red with anger, not at the agents, but at me, their daughter, the fraud, the liar, the woman who'd stolen honor she didn't deserve. "There's one more thing," Walsh added reluctantly. "The cousin who live-streamed the arrest, Emma. She's being contacted by documentary filmmakers. 3 production companies have already made offers for exclusive rights to her footage. Of course, my humiliation would be monetized, packaged for consumption, analyzed by body language experts and armchair psychologists across the internet. The operation required it, but knowing that didn't make it easier to swallow. "Bring my sister in," I said suddenly. "She needs to understand what she's agreed to." Foster nodded to Walsh, who spoke into her radio. Minutes later, Sarah was escorted into the command center. Her eyes widened at the sophistication of the setup, the gravity of the personnel present. This wasn't some interagency task force, this was National Command Authority in a restaurant back office. "Officer Chen," Foster addressed her formally, "you've been provisionally read into Operation Firebreak. What you're about to hear doesn't leave this room. Understood? So." "Yes, ma'am." Foster outlined the full scope, how Sarah's actions had accidentally triggered a massive counterintelligence operation, how her arrest video would be used to discredit real intelligence, how she'd need to maintain her role possibly for years. Sarah listened, her face cycling through emotions, shock, guilt, determination, and finally a question. What about Joy? When this is over, when the threats are neutralized, can she come home? Can she be herself again? Foster's silence was answer enough. "She can never be Joy Martinez again," I said quietly. "That person is burned beyond recovery. After this operation concludes, I'll be relocated given a new identity. The family will be told I disappeared, probably that I couldn't face the shame of exposure. You'll be the only one who knows the truth. That's not fair, Sarah protested. You've served. Fairness is a luxury in our world. Foster cut her off. Your sister understood that when she accepted this life. The question is, do you? Sarah looked at me, and I saw my baby sister for a moment, the one who used to follow me around wanting to do everything her big sister did. Now she was following me into a world of necessary lies and permanent sacrifice. I understand, she said finally. Good. Then let's discuss your script for the next 72 hours. You'll be interviewed by major news outlets. Your story needs to be consistent, believable, and designed to maximize the discrediting effect. Think of it as the most important undercover operation of your career. As they began coaching Sarah, I returned to my analysis. The enemy's linguistic patterns were evolving, adapting to our interception. They knew we were listening now, so they were switching to deeper cover, more obscure dialects, references that required not just language skills but cultural immersion to understand. My phone buzzed the secure line only 12 people in the world had access to. The caller ID showed a string of numbers that translated to a location Kandahar, Afghanistan. My field partner from my last deployment checking in despite the time difference. Heard you got burned, his voice said without preamble. Need extraction. Negative, controlled burn, part of something bigger. Copy that. Watch your 6. Word is they're mobilizing resources to verify your exposure. If they confirm you're really out, they'll try to extract everything I know through my family. I finished. Already anticipated. Firebreak protocols are active. Stay safe, Go 77. The line went dead. Around me, the operation continued to expand. More personnel arrived, more screens lit up with intelligence, more pieces of a global puzzle fell into place. All because my sister's jealousy had intersected with enemy action at exactly the right moment. Or wrong moment, depending on perspective. As I watched Sarah rehearsing her story, the dedicated cop who exposed her fraudulent sister, I wondered if she truly understood what she'd signed up for. The weight of permanent deception, the corrosion of carrying lies that protected people who would hate you for it. Martinez Rodriguez called out, "We've got another linguistic hit. This one's in Urdu with Punjabi influences. They're adapting fast." I moved to a station, slipping back into the work that defined me. Outside, my family believed I was a fraud. Inside this room, I was the thin linguistic line between order and chaos. The security breach my sister had created was becoming our greatest weapon. Sometimes in intelligence work, the worst disasters became the best opportunities. We just had to be willing to pay the price in truth, family and futures that would never be. As I parsed the new transmission, I made peace with what was coming. Joy Martinez would die a public death as a fraud and liar. Whatever identity I assumed next would carry that shadow forever. But somewhere in a Detroit warehouse, a Miami apartment, a Seattle office building, people would wake up tomorrow because I'd chosen duty over dignity. It was enough. It had to be. The linguistic patterns shifted again, and suddenly I recognized something that made my blood freeze. Hidden within the Urdu-Punjabi hybrid was a phrase I'd only heard once before, during an interrogation in a black site that didn't officially exist. The enemy wasn't just adapting. They were using intelligence extracted from one of our captured operatives 3 years ago. "Commander," I called Walsh over keeping my voice steady despite the implications. "We have a crimson-level breach. They're using Officer Chen from Bangkok. He's been compromised." Walsh's face went pale. Officer Chen, no relation to my sister, had been missing in action for 3 years. We'd assumed he was dead. If he'd been turned or broken, every operation he'd known about was potentially compromised. "How certain are you?" 100%. This phrasing, this specific dialect, Mixture Chen developed it himself as a personal code. They couldn't know it unless they had him. Walsh grabbed her secure phone. "I need Director Foster back in here now." While she made the call, I continued decoding. The message was elegant in its simplicity, a list of addresses, not Target's safe houses, our safe houses, locations that should have been known only to a handful of people with beyond top secret clearance. Foster burst through the door, followed by two analysts I didn't recognize. "Talk to me, Martinez." I explained quickly, my fingers never stopping their work on the keyboard. Each decoded line revealed another compromised location: Bangkok, Berlin, Cairo, Mexico City. Years of carefully cultivated resources burned in a single transmission. "They're not just mapping our network," Foster said grimly. "They're showing us they've already mapped it. This is a demonstration of capability." "Ma'am," one of the analysts interrupted, "Harrison's lawyer is live on CNN." The main screen switched to the news feed. Marcus's attorney, who we now knew was a foreign asset, stood outside the Denver Federal Building, addressing a crowd of reporters. "My client, Marcus Harrison, has been unlawfully detained by individuals claiming to be federal agents. This elaborate hoax, perpetrated by Ms. Joy Martinez and her supporters, has gone too far. We demand his immediate release and will be filing charges against everyone involved in this vigilante action." The CNN anchor came back on screen. "This story continues to develop. Joy Martinez, who was arrested earlier tonight by her own sister for allegedly impersonating a military officer, appears to have supporters who took matters into their own hands. We go now to our panel of experts." "Beautiful," Foster murmured. "He's playing directly into Firebreak. The more elaborate he makes the conspiracy sound, the less credible any truth becomes." My earpiece crackled. Sarah's voice tense but controlled. "They want me to go on camera, local news first, then national. What's my story?" "Stick to the script," Foster instructed. "You're the dedicated officer who discovered a family member's deception. Express disappointment, but emphasize duty over family. Make it personal, emotional. The more human drama, the less people look at operational details." On another screen, Marcus was being transferred to federal holding. But I caught something in his body language, the way he kept checking his watch, the specific pattern of his glances. He was signaling someone. "Walsh Harrison's expecting extraction. Timeline indicators suggest within the next 2 hours. Impossible, he's in federal custody. Check his lawyer's associates, anyone arriving in Denver in the last 6 hours." Walsh's team ran the search. Within minutes, they had hits 3 individuals flying in on separate flights, all with diplomatic passports from different countries, all staying at the same hotel. "Extraction team," Foster confirmed. "They're going to try to get him out during transfer to arraignment. Standard prisoner movement, minimal security, perfect opportunity." "So we let them try," I suggested. "Track them back to their base of operations." Foster smiled coldly. "I like how you think, Martinez. But first we need more from Harrison. He's given up his handler to his lawyer, but he's holding back the network structure. We need him to believe escape is imminent." "I can help with that." Sarah's voice came through the comms. "Let me visit him. Gloat about the arrest. He'll want a hint at what's coming, won't be able to resist letting me know I've failed." It was a good plan. Marcus's ego had always been his weakness, the need to be the smartest person in the room to have the last word. "Approved," Foster said, "but Martinez guides you through earpiece. She knows his psychological triggers better than anyone." 20 minutes later, I watched through security cameras as Sarah entered the federal holding facility. She'd changed out of her patrol uniform into civilian clothes jeans and a Denver PD Academy sweatshirt. The concerned sister visiting the man who'd helped expose her family's shame. Marcus sat in the interview room orange jumpsuit, replacing his expensive suit. His lawyer sat beside him, still playing the role of righteous defender. "Sarah," Marcus said warmly as she entered, "I'm so sorry it came to this. I never wanted Joy's lies to destroy your family." Through her earpiece, I fed Sarah responses. "She's destroyed everything. My parents won't stop crying. The media is camped outside their house." Marcus leaned forward, sympathy painted on his face. "It must be devastating, but you did the right thing. The truth matters." "Play into his ego," I instructed Sarah. Ask him how he knew." "I still don't understand how you figured it out," Sarah said, following my lead. "I'm a cop and I never suspected. You must have seen something I missed." Marcus preened exactly as I'd predicted. Well, certain inconsistencies in her stories. My associates helped verify my suspicions. Associates. His lawyer touched Marcus's arm in warning, but ego overrode caution. Let's just say some people appreciate when military deception is exposed. They ensure justice is served even when systems fail. "He's hinting at the extraction," I told Sarah. "Push slightly." "Well, I hope justice is served," Sarah said. "You'll probably be tied up in legal proceedings for months." Marcus smiled the same smile he'd worn when he thought he'd won arguments during our relationship. "Oh, I wouldn't worry about that. These situations have a way of resolving themselves quickly. By tomorrow morning, this will all be behind us." There it was, confirmation of the timeline. "Thank him and leave," I instructed. "We have what we need." As Sarah exited, Foster was already mobilizing resources. The extraction team would make their move during the 3 a.m. transfer standard procedure, moving Marcus to arraignment holding. They'd expect light security routine transport. Instead, they'd find a trap years in the making. Martinez. Foster said, "I need you to do something difficult. The family gathering is breaking up. Your parents want to see you before they leave. Can you maintain cover?" I looked at the security feed showing my parents in the restaurant dining room. My mother's face was ravaged by tears. My father aged a decade in hours. They'd believed in me, defended me, loved me unconditionally. Now they thought their daughter was a fraud and a liar. "I'll do it." The walk from the command center to the dining room felt like approaching an execution. Federal agents flanked me part of the show, making it appear I was in custody. As I entered, conversation stopped. 43 family members turned to stare at the woman they thought they knew. "Mom," I started. She slapped me. Not hard, but the shock of it, my gentle mother who'd never raised a hand to anyone, silenced even the federal agents. "How could you?" she whispered. "All these years, all the missed holidays, all the stories. Were any of them true?" "I wanted to serve," I said, keeping to the cover story. "I wanted you to be proud." "Proud." My father's voice cracked. "We were proud of you before. We didn't need you to be a hero. We just needed you to be honest." Every word was a knife made worse because I couldn't defend myself. Couldn't explain that the missed holidays were spent preventing attacks, that the stories were sanitized versions of classified truth, that everything they thought was a lie was actually the only truth I could share. "I'm sorry," I said simply. "I'm so sorry." "Are you going to jail?" my brother Thomas asked bluntly. "That's being determined," one of the federal agents responded. "Ms. Martinez is cooperating with our investigation." "Investigation into what?" Aunt Patricia demanded. "How many people she's defrauded? How many veterans she's insulted with her charade?" I let their anger wash over me, cataloging faces for threat assessment. Most showed disgust or disappointment. But Cousin David watched with an expression I couldn't read, and Uncle James kept glancing at the federal agents with suspicion. They'd need to be monitored. Too much curiosity could be dangerous. "The shuttle is here to take you all home," another agent announced. "We'll need contact information for follow-up interviews." As my family filed out, not one looked back except my grandmother. She paused at the door, leaning heavily on her walker, and studied me with those sharp eyes that had seen through every childhood lie. "You're not very good at this, are you?" she said quietly. "At what, Grandma?" "At pretending to be something you're not." She smiled sadly. "The real question is, which role are you failing at, the hero or the fraud?" Before I could respond, she was gone, leaving me with a question that cut deeper than any accusation. Back in the command center, the operation continued. On the screens, Marcus's extraction team moved into position. Satellite feeds showed similar movements in 5 other cities, a coordinated effort to retrieve assets and eliminate evidence. "They're panicking," Walsh observed. "Your exposure triggered a system-wide burn notice. They're pulling out all stops to salvage what they can." Which means they'll make mistakes, Foster added. Martinez, you've given us the opening we've waited 2 years for. By dawn, we'll have rolled up cells from here to Prague. The victory felt hollow as I watched my family's shuttle disappear into the Denver night. In a few hours, Marcus would attempt his escape and instead deliver his entire network into our hands. The sleeper cells would be neutralized, the safe houses reclaim the threats eliminated. And Joy Martinez would be dead to everyone who'd ever loved her. Ma'am Rodriguez called out, "We've got movement. The extraction team is mobilizing ahead of schedule. They know we're on to them." "All units prepare for early intercept," Foster commanded. Martinez anything in their communications suggesting abort protocols. I scanned the linguistic feeds, parsing desperate messages in a dozen languages. "Negative, ma'am. They're committed. Too much invested to pull back now." "Then let's finish this. Operation Firebreak is go. All units, all cities, simultaneous action in T-minus 30 minutes. As the final phase began, I thought about Sarah maintaining her cover as the hero cop who'd exposed a fraud, about my parents crying themselves to sleep over a daughter they thought they'd never really known, about Marcus sitting in his cell counting down to an escape that would never come. The ex's exposure had triggered everything, a cascade of consequences he'd never imagined when he'd accepted foreign money to betray someone who'd loved him. His greed had cost me my family, but given my country victory in a shadow war most would never know existed. In the intelligence world, we called that an acceptable trade. I put on my headphones and went back to work parsing the final desperate communications of a network about to collapse. Outside Joy Martinez, the fraud was being crucified in the court of public opinion. Inside Sterling 77 was winning a war. The price of victory had never been higher. But then again, it always was when family was the currency. The federal holding facility's harsh fluorescent lights made everything look sickly and surreal as I watched my sister through the security monitors. Sarah sat alone in an interview room, her head in her hands, shoulders shaking with silent sobs. The weight of what she'd done and what she'd agreed to do was crushing her. Foster stood beside me, observing with clinical detachment. "She's not handling the transition well. She's a street cop who just got thrust into international espionage," I replied. "Give her time." Time is what we don't have. The extraction team moves in 20 minutes. If she breaks character now, she won't. I moved toward the door. "Let me talk to her." "Martinez, your cover. Can handle 5 minutes of truth between sisters. She needs to understand what she's fighting for." Foster nodded reluctantly. I entered the room, closing the door behind me with a soft click that made Sarah's head snap up. Her face was streaked with tears, mascara running in dark rivers down her cheeks. "Joy, what are you? They said you were being processed." 5 minutes, I said quietly, sitting across from her. "That's all we have before I go back to being the fraud and you go back to being the hero cop. But right now, we're just sisters." Sarah's composure shattered completely. "I destroyed everything. Mom slapped you. Dad won't even say your name. The whole family thinks you're a pathological liar, and I'm the one who had to stop you. You did what needed to be done." "Did I?" Her voice cracked. "Or did I just let my jealousy and Marcus manipulate me into becoming a weapon against my own sister?" I reached across the table, taking her hands in mine. They were ice cold, trembling like autumn leaves. "Sarah, listen to me. Do you know why I really joined the military?" She shook her head. "Because of you. Remember when you were 12 and those kids were bullying Emma at school? You stood up to them even though they were older and bigger. You said protecting people was more important than being popular or safe." I squeezed her hands gently. "I joined because I wanted to be like my little sister, brave enough to stand up for others." Fresh tears spilled down her face. "And look what I did with that bravery. I humiliated you. I destroyed your career. I made our parents hate you." "No," I said firmly. "You exposed a foreign intelligence operation. You saved lives in 6 cities. You gave us the opening to dismantle a network that's been killing American assets for 3 years. You did exactly what that 12-year-old girl would have done. You protected people. By destroying you. By playing a role, just like I've been playing roles for 8 years. The only difference is, your performance tonight will save more lives than most of my operations combined. Sarah pulled her hands away, wrapping them around herself. How do you do it? How do you live knowing everyone you love believes lies about you? I thought about the question, really considered it for the first time in years. By remembering that their safety matters more than their approval, Mom and Dad thinking I'm a fraud means no one will ever use them to get to me. You being the hero who exposed me means you're protected by public admiration. The lies keep you all safe. But the loneliness is the price of the work. I glanced at my watch. 3 minutes left. Sarah, I need you to understand something. After tonight, Joy Martinez effectively dies. I'll be relocated given a new identity. You'll probably never see me again. Her face went white. What? No, that's not, they said after the operation. They told you what you needed to hear to get cooperation. But this is the reality. My exposure is too complete. Even after Firebreak floods the zone with misinformation, I'll never be able to operate as Joy Martinez again. So I didn't just destroy your reputation, I actually killed you. You freed me, I corrected. 8 years of lies, of missed connections, of half-truths and deflections. Do you have any idea how exhausting it is to constantly monitor every word, every expression, every casual conversation for operational security? Sarah stared at me and I saw understanding dawn in her eyes. You wanted out, she whispered. Part of you wanted this to happen. I couldn't confirm it, not even to myself. But maybe somewhere deep down, when I'd seen Marcus at that restaurant, when I'd recognized the trap closing, I'd let it happen. Maybe I was tired of being a ghost. 1 minute, Foster's voice came through the hidden speaker. Sarah, in about 15 minutes, Marcus is going to attempt his escape. His team will fail. We'll roll up the entire network. The media will go crazy with the story. International spy ring attempted jailbreak hero cop sister who exposed it all. You're going to be famous. I don't want to be famous. I want my sister back. Then be the sister I need you to be. Strong, dedicated, uncompromising in pursuit of justice. Make them believe you chose duty over family. Make it so convincing that no one ever questions it. Protect our parents by being the daughter who did the right thing. Can you do that for me? She wiped her face with her sleeve, smearing the mascara worse. But when she looked up, I saw steel in her eyes, the same steel that had made her face down those bullies all those years ago. I can do it for you, for them, for the people we're protecting. That's my sister. I stood reassuming the posture of the exposed fraud. Now arrest me properly this time. Make it look real. Sarah stood as well, transformation instant. The broken woman became the determined officer. Joy Martinez, you're being formally charged with impersonation of a federal officer, fraud, and conspiracy. Stand up and face the wall. I complied, letting her secure my hands behind my back again. But as she did, she leaned close and whispered, I love you, Joy. Whatever name you wear next, wherever you go, you'll always be my hero. Maintain cover, I whispered back. Hero cop doesn't whisper sweet nothings to frauds. She stepped back, voice hardening. Move! Processing is waiting. As she marched me out, federal agents fell into step around us. The command center screens showed Marcus's extraction team taking positions. Snipers on rooftops, vehicles in blocking positions, electronic warfare units ready to jam communications. They thought they were rescuing an asset. They were walking into the end of their organization. Foster met us in the hallway. Well done, both of you. Officer Chen, you're needed in the command center. Martinez transport is ready. Transport? Sarah asked. To a secure facility for debriefing. Foster lied smoothly. Standard procedure for cases involving international intelligence. Sarah's jaw tightened, but she nodded. We both knew I wouldn't be coming back. As they led me away, I looked back once. My sister stood straight and tall, every inch the hero cop who'd chosen justice over family. "Sarah," I called out, breaking protocol one last time. She turned, and for a moment we were just sisters again. "Take care of them," I said simply. "Always," she replied. Then the federal agents guided me around a corner, and Sarah Chen, my sister, my accidental savior, my unexpected partner, disappeared from my life forever. In the transport vehicle, I watched the operation unfold on secure tablets. Marcus's extraction team made their move exactly on schedule. The light security transfer they expected turned into a masterclass in counterintelligence. Within minutes, 17 foreign operatives were in custody across 6 cities. Marcus himself never made it to the transport van. The moment he realized the extraction had failed, his confident facade crumbled. By dawn, he'd give up every contact, every payment, every operational detail in exchange for protective custody. The network that had taken years to build collapsed in hours. Sarah played her part perfectly. The media interviews were flawless, the dedicated officer who'd made the hardest choice of her career. She became America's sweetheart overnight, the cop who put duty above family. No one questioned her story. No one suspected the truth. My handler appeared on the tablet screen as we left Denver airspace. "Outstanding work, Martinez. Operation Firebreak is already showing results. Chatter indicates multiple organizations are pulling back operations, convinced their intelligence is compromised. And my family, under discreet protection. They'll never know, of course. As far as they're concerned, you disappeared in shame. Officer Chen will report you missed your court date, that you've likely fled the country. And Sarah will have our full support. Her career will flourish. Any doors she wants opened will open. It's the least we can do." I nodded, closing the tablet. Below, the lights of Denver faded into darkness. Somewhere down there, my parents were learning to live with their disappointment. My brother was deleting photos. My cousins were selling their stories to whoever would pay. And Sarah was preparing for another interview, weaving lies to protect truths too dangerous to speak. By morning, Joy Martinez would be a cautionary tale, a meme, a punchline. The woman who wanted so badly to be special that she invented an entire military career. The fraud her own sister had to stop. It was a good death, as operational deaths went. Clean, public, with no loose ends to tie up. Sterling 77 would get a new name, a new face if needed, a new legend to build. The work would continue. But in the dark of the transport plane heading toward a rebirth I hadn't asked for, I allowed myself to mourn Joy Martinez. The daughter, the sister, the woman who'd tried to serve both family and country and discovered they sometimes demanded opposite sacrifices. Sarah's breakdown had been real. So was mine, silent and private, in the belly of a plane carrying me toward another life. We'd both broken tonight, shattered by the weight of necessary lies. The difference was she got to rebuild in the light, surrounded by admiration and family. I would rebuild in shadows, alone except for the cold comfort of duty. It was enough. It had to be. 6 hours after leaving Denver airspace, I sat in a nondescript safe house, watching news coverage of the Martins military fraud case, as the media had dubbed it. Every major network led with the story, each adding their own spin to the narrative we'd carefully crafted. But it was the interview with my mother that shattered what remained of my emotional defenses. "I keep thinking about all the signs I missed," she told the CNN reporter, her voice steady despite the tears. "The vague answers, the missed holidays, the way she could never introduce us to military friends. As a mother, you want to believe your child. You make excuses, fill in the gaps with hope instead of truth." The reporter, perfectly coiffed and professionally sympathetic, leaned forward. "It must be especially difficult given that your other daughter was the one who exposed the deception." "Sarah did her duty," my mother said, and I could see the rehearsed nature of the words fed to her by the public relations team Foster had assigned. "She showed more courage than I did. A mother's love can blind you to hard truths." My handler, Agent Phillips, muted the television. You don't need to watch this. Yes, I do. I unmuted it immediately. I need to see what we've built, what we've destroyed. The interview continued, but CNN split-screened it with footage from the restaurant. There I was in handcuffs, Sarah leading me out while family members looked on in horror. The network had somehow obtained Emma's live stream and was playing it with expert commentary overlaid. Notice the body language here. A former FBI profiler explained, the suspect maintains rigid posture, classic indication of someone whose false identity is crumbling. Meanwhile, Officer Chen shows textbook professional detachment despite the personal connection. Textbook, I muttered. If only they knew Sarah was one breakdown away from blowing the entire operation. My secure phone buzzed, Foster's number. Martinez, we have a situation. Your father's been contacted by a documentary crew. They're offering significant money for exclusive family interviews. He's considering it. My blood chilled. How significant? 200,000. Apparently the story's gone international. There's particular interest from countries where stolen valor is, let's say, viewed differently. I understood the implications immediately. Foreign intelligence services would pay well for exclusive access to my family mining for any operational details I might have let slip over the years. The documentary would be an intelligence-gathering operation disguised as human interest. Can we block it? Not without revealing federal interest, which would raise questions. We need your father to refuse on his own. He won't, not with that much money on the table. I knew my father practical proud and hit hard by the economy. His small accounting firm had struggled for years. 200,000 would solve every financial worry. Then we need to make the offer less attractive. Any suggestions? I thought quickly. Have Sarah convince them. She's the only one they'll listen to now. 20 minutes later, I watched through security cameras as Sarah arrived at my parents' house. The media circus outside had grown news vans, photographers, true crime podcast hosts, all hoping for an exclusive angle. Sarah pushed through them with practiced authority, her new fame serving as both shield and sword. Inside, my parents sat at the kitchen table where we'd shared thousands of meals. The documentary contract lay between them. My father's reading glasses perched on his nose as he studied the fine print. Sarah, thank God, my mother said, rising to embrace her. Maybe you can talk sense into your father. $200,000, my father said without preamble. That's Judy's college fund. That's retirement security. That's breathing room we've never had. Judy, my niece, Thomas's daughter, 7 years old and already showing the academic brilliance that would need expensive schools to nurture. Dad. Sarah sat down and through her earpiece I fed her the words. This isn't just about money, it's about safety. Safety. He looked up sharply. From what your sister's lies have already destroyed us publicly. What more can happen? Tell him about the death threats, I instructed Sarah. Make it real. Sarah's delivery was perfect. I've received 17 death threats since the arrest. Some from people who think I betrayed family, others from those who believe Joy had accomplices. Every interview, every documentary, every public appearance puts a target on your backs. My mother's face went pale. Death threats, Sarah, you didn't tell us. I didn't want to worry you more. But Dad, this documentary will make you famous. Not the good kind. The kind where people recognize you in grocery stores, where they follow you home, where they post your address online for anyone to find. My father wavered, I could see it. The money meant security, but not if it came with danger. There's something else. Sarah continued following my remote guidance. The production company, I had a friend in the department run background. They have connections to organizations that, let's just say they're not interested in telling America's story fairly. Foreign, my father asked sharply. He'd served in Vietnam, still carried a deep patriotism despite everything. Sarah nodded. The money isn't just for your story. It's for access. To this house, to Joy's room, to any documents or photos she might have left. They're looking for something. That did it. My father pushed the contract away. Then they can keep their money. We've been fooled once, not again. My mother reached for his hand. We'll manage. We always have. Through the cameras, I watched my family choose poverty over profit, safety over security. They thought they were protecting themselves from foreign exploitation. They were actually protecting operational secrets they didn't know existed. But the conversation wasn't over. My brother Thomas and his wife Monica arrived having fought through the media gauntlet. Thomas carried a banker's box. I recognized it immediately. My things from their garage, where I'd stored items between deployments. We can't have this in our house anymore, Monica announced, setting the box on the table. I won't have my children growing up with reminders of their aunt's deception. Inside were photos, awards from high school, my college diploma, the real life that existed before I became a ghost. But mixed in were operational souvenirs I shouldn't have kept. Challenge coins that could be traced photos, with faces that needed to remain unknown, a journal I'd foolishly maintained during training. Burn it, Thomas said flatly. All of it, like she burned us. No, my mother said firmly. These are still memories. Before she became, whatever she became, she was our daughter, our sister. Was, Thomas emphasized, past tense. She's dead to me. Sarah intervened again, following my whispered guidance. Let me take it as evidence. The feds want to catalog everything, make sure there are no other victims we haven't found. It was thin, but it worked. My family was too emotionally exhausted to question why evidence was still being collected after the case seemed closed. As Sarah loaded the box into her car, I saw her slip something from her pocket. Into it, a flash drive I recognized. The one containing photos from operations I'd shared with her during our 5 minutes of truth. She was adding evidence to muddy the waters further, making it impossible for anyone analyzing the contents to separate fact from fiction. Good tradecraft. Foster commented, apparently monitoring the same feeds. Your sister's a natural. She shouldn't have to be, I replied. The documentary crew didn't give up easily. When my father refused their offer, they pivoted to extended family. Cousins, aunts, uncles, everyone had a price, and the production company seemed to have unlimited funds. Emma, my teenage cousin, posted on social media about her offer. OMG, they want to pay me $50K just to share my live stream and do some interviews. Should I do it? Vote in the comments. Within an hour, she received a visit from the FBI, at least that's what her panicked posts claimed. In reality, it was our assets explaining the legal ramifications of profiting from an ongoing federal investigation. Emma quickly decided $50,000 wasn't worth potential prosecution. One by one, we shut down every avenue of exploitation, but the emotional damage spread like a virus through the family tree. My grandmother, the one who'd seen through the performance, suffered what the family called a mild cardiac event, but what medical reports labeled as stress-induced arrhythmia. I watched her hospital room through security feeds, listened to her heart monitor beep steadily as my mother held her hand. It's my fault, my mother whispered. I raised her to believe she had to be special, to achieve great things. I pushed too hard. No, my grandmother said weakly. You raised her to serve. Sometimes service requires sacrifices we don't understand. My mother missed the significance, but I caught it. Grandmother knew. Somehow, she knew. Her eyes found the security camera in the corner of her room, and she winked. Foster appeared at my shoulder. Your grandmother, Elizabeth Cheney Morrison. Did you know she worked for the OSS during World War II? I stared at the screen. What? Recruited at 19, operated in occupied France for 2 years. Came home married, your grandfather never spoke of it again. Her records were sealed until last year. My grandmother, the keeper of secrets, she'd recognized the signs because she'd lived them. The vague stories, the missed events, the careful deflections, she'd done it all decades before I was born. Does she know about me specifically? Unknown. But she knows the life, the weight of it, the cost. I watched my grandmother squeeze my mother's hand, passing strength through generations. 3 women, 3 different wars, all serving in shadows. Only one of us got to come home intact. The media coverage reached peak saturation. Talk shows dissected my psychology. Veterans groups publicly condemned me. Psychology professors used me as case studies in pathological lying. Sarah did 12 interviews in 3 days, each performance more polished than the last. By the end of the week, Joy Martinez had become a verb in online spaces. To pull a Martinez meant to lie so elaborately that you destroyed your own life. But the real victory came in the intelligence channels. Chatter indicated massive pullbacks in operations targeting military families. Our deliberate exposure had created a new paradigm. Anyone claiming military service could be bait for counterintelligence. The enemy couldn't trust their own human intelligence anymore. "Congratulations," Foster said as we watched the latest news cycle. "You've become the most famous military fraud in American history. Your Wikipedia page has more edits than most celebrities." "My legacy," I said bitterly. "No," she corrected. "Your legend. Joy Martinez, the fraud, will be remembered forever. The operative who saved hundreds of lives will never be known. Which would you rather have, fame or purpose?" I knew the answer, had always known it. But watching my family grieve a person who'd never existed while the real me sat in shadows, it hollowed out something inside that no amount of purpose could fill. The shock would fade. The media would move on. My family would heal around my absence like tissue around shrapnel, present, but no longer actively hurting. And somewhere, a grandmother who'd kept similar secrets would remember a granddaughter who'd served in ways she could never speak. It was almost enough. It had to be. 2 weeks after the arrest, I stood in a sterile debriefing room at a facility that didn't exist on any government registry. The walls were lined with monitors showing the cascading effects of Operation Firebreak intelligence networks and retreat assets being burned, decades of careful cultivation, destroyed in days. General Morrison herself conducted the debriefing, her expression unreadable as she reviewed the casualty list. Not deaths, those we'd prevented, but careers ended, covers, blown operations scrapped. 43 civilian witnesses to your exposure. She read from her tablet. 17 million initial views of the arrest video. 6 allied intelligence services requesting clarification on your status. 1 family destroyed. Tell me, Martinez, was it worth it? You're asking the wrong question, ma'am. Her eyebrow raised slightly. Oh, the question isn't whether it was worth it. The question is whether we had any choice once Marcus made contact with Sarah. The operation was blown the moment he showed her that fabricated evidence. We just controlled the detonation. Controlled. Morrison set down her tablet. Your sister is developing PTSD from maintaining her cover. Your parents have aged a decade in 2 weeks. Your grandmother died believing her granddaughter was a fraud. Yes, we confirmed she passed this morning. Controlled seems generous. The news about grandmother hit like a physical blow. I'd been monitoring her condition, but the feeds had gone dark 6 hours ago. Now I knew why. She knew, I said quietly. Somehow she knew the truth. Perhaps, but she took it to her grave along with her own secrets from the OSS. Your family has quite a tradition of service and silence. Morrison pulled up new files on her tablet. The Marcus network has been thoroughly dismantled. 17 cells across 9 countries, all rolled up thanks to the intelligence gathered during Firebreak. We estimate you've prevented approximately 300 casualties over the next 5 years. The math of shadows, I murmured, lives saved that will never know they were in danger. Indeed. However, we have a more immediate problem. Your brother Thomas has been contacted by someone claiming to have proof that you were actually military. They're offering to sell him documentation that would clear your name. My blood ran cold. How much proof? Enough to be concerning. Photos from operations' partial service records, even some classified documents that were supposedly destroyed. Someone on the inside is trying to profit from your exposure. Or trying to resurrect my cover for their own purposes. If my family suddenly believes I was real military, they become targets again. Our thoughts exactly, which brings us to your next assignment. I straightened. After 2 weeks of debriefings and isolation, the prospect of action was welcome. Where do you need me? Here. Morrison gestured to the monitors showing my family. We need you to run counterintelligence on your own exposure. Stop whoever's trying to resurrect Joy Martinez before they compromise ongoing operations. You want me to investigate myself? Who better? You know every detail of your legend, every operation that could be exposed. More importantly, you're already dead. A ghost hunting ghosts. The irony wasn't lost on me. My final mission as Joy Martinez would be ensuring she stayed buried. Morrison handed me a new identification packet. You'll be operating as Agent Sarah Walsh, Internal Affairs Investigator, looking into the Martinez fraud case. Your cover is investigating how she fooled so many people for so long. In reality, you'll be identifying and neutralizing the leak. I studied the credentials. Another name, another life, another lie to live. But this one would take me home, or at least close to it. What about my family, my sister? No contact. As far as they know, Joy Martinez vanished in shame. Agent Walsh has no connection to their tragedy. Can you handle that? Could I investigate my own death while watching my family mourn? Could I protect them while they cursed my name? Could I maintain cover while my sister struggled with the weight of our shared secret? I can handle it. Good. There's one more thing. Morrison pulled up a video file. This was posted on a conspiracy forum 3 hours ago. The poster claims to have been at the restaurant during your arrest. The video was shaky, clearly taken from a phone hidden under a table. But the audio was clear. My conversation with Thompson about the joint training exercise, his recognition of my actual status, the moment doubt crept into Sarah's carefully planned arrest. It's already been viewed 12,000 times, Morrison continued. The conspiracy theorists are having a field day. Some think you're a hero being framed, others believe it's an even deeper deception. Either way, it's complicating our narrative. Can't we just delete it and confirm it's real? No. We need a subtler approach. You'll need to discredit it from within, make the conspiracy theorists eat their own. Think you can manipulate the truth seekers into believing the lie? Another irony. I'd spent 8 years living lies to protect truth. Now I'd spend however long it took lying to protect lies. When do I start? Tomorrow. Tonight you should know what's happening with your family. Morrison brought up surveillance feeds. Your funeral is in the morning. My what? Not official, of course. But your mother insisted on a memorial service. For the daughter she thought she knew, as she put it. Most of the family will attend, including Sarah. I watched my mother and father in their living room addressing envelopes for the memorial service. My photo sat on the table, not in military uniform, but from college graduation, before I became someone else, when I was just Joy. The psychological profiles suggest this will provide closure, Morrison explained. Let them mourn the false identity so they can move forward. It's cleaner than leaving it open-ended. And Sarah will play her role perfectly, I'm sure. The sister who chose duty over family, attending out of obligation rather than love. She's become quite accomplished at living your lie. That night, alone in temporary quarters, I watched the family prepare for my funeral. Thomas practiced a eulogy that burned with anger. My mother chose flowers daisies because they'd been my favorite as a child. My father sat alone in his study, staring at a photo from my high school graduation before placing it face down on his desk. Sarah arrived late, having fought through another media gauntlet. She looked exhausted, hollow-eyed, 10 pounds lighter than 2 weeks ago. The weight of carrying our secret was eating her alive. She found a moment alone in my childhood bedroom, which had been preserved like a shrine to normalcy. Trophies, certificates, photos of friends who'd long since forgotten me. She sat on my bed and pulled out her phone. "I know you'll never get this," she said to the recording app. "I know you're gone, relocated, probably with a new name and face. But I need to say it anyway. I played my part perfectly. Everyone believes I'm the hero who exposed you. They have no idea that every word of praise feels like swallowing glass. I saved lives by destroying yours, and I'll never be able to tell anyone. You prepared for this life. I got thrown into it. And joy. I don't know if I'm strong enough to carry it. I see why you want it out. The weight of all these secrets. It's crushing me. But I'll keep going. For you. For them. For all the people who'll never know what we sacrificed. I love you wherever you are. Your sister, always. She deleted the recording immediately, but I'd saved it to my secure drive. Evidence of the true cost of firebreak, not in blown covers or burned assets, but in the slow destruction of a good cop who'd stumbled into our shadow world. The next morning, I sat in a rental car 3 blocks from the church, watching my family arrive for my memorial service. Media kept a respectful distance. Sarah's handlers had negotiated that much. But long-range lenses still captured every moment. My mother wore black, leaning heavily on my father. Thomas and Monica arrived with their children, who looked confused about why they were dressed up. Extended family filled in the gaps, cousins, aunts, uncles all coming to mourn the fraud who'd fooled them. Sarah arrived last in full uniform. The symbolism was perfect duty before family justice, before emotion. She walked past reporters without comment, her face a mask of professional composure. Inside the church, they mourned a fiction, but their grief was real. They'd lost a daughter, a sister, a family member to a deception so complete they questioned every memory. Was the joy at Christmas real? Were the birthday cards sincere? Had any of it been true? I knew those answers. Every moment of love had been real. Only the context was fabricated. But they'd never know that, and the uncertainty would poison every happy memory. Agent Walsh. My new handler's voice came through my earpiece. Time to move. Your first interview is in an hour. I started the car, driving away from my own funeral toward my new mission. Behind me, my family said goodbye to someone who'd never existed, while the person they'd actually lost began hunting the shadows, threatening to expose the truth. The consequences of firebreak would ripple for years. Sarah would carry our secret until it broke her or made her stronger. My parents would age wondering where they went wrong. Thomas would teach his children that even family could betray you. And I would spend however long it took ensuring Joy Martinez stayed dead and buried no matter who tried to resurrect her. The war had evolved. My battlefield had shifted. But the mission remained the same: protect those who'd never know they needed protecting, even if they were protecting them from the truth about me. In the intelligence world, we called it a successful operation. In the human world, it felt like attending my own ghost story. 6 months after my funeral, I sat across from Sarah in a dingy motel room outside Boulder. My appearance had changed. Hair dyed auburn, subtle prosthetics, aging my face contact lenses, turning my brown eyes green. Agent Sarah Walsh looked nothing like Joy Martinez, but my sister recognized me instantly. My God, she breathed, tears immediate. Joy, how are you here? 60 seconds. I said, activating a jamming device that would temporarily defeat surveillance. That's all the time we have before my handlers notice the dead zone. Sarah lunged across the table, pulling me into a desperate hug. She felt fragile bird bones where muscle used to be. The cost of living our lie had carved away pieces of her. I'm investigating internal leaks about your case. I spoke quickly into her ear. Someone's trying to prove you were real military. I've been assigned to stop them. This meeting is unsanctioned. If we're caught, we both disappear. She pulled back, studying my altered face. The documentary people haven't given up. They keep approaching family with new evidence. Photos that shouldn't exist. Documents that look real. I know. I've been tracking them. Sarah, what I'm about to ask, it goes against everything we've built. But I need your help to end this permanently. Anything. I pulled out a folder showing her falsified evidence of my fictional military service doctored photos, forged documents, manufactured service records. all convincing enough to fool civilians, all traceable to foreign intelligence if examined by experts. I need you to discover these in Marcus's effects. Make it look like he created them to frame me, that the whole military story was his fabrication to destroy our family. Turn the narrative completely. I wasn't a fraud who got caught. I was an innocent woman targeted by a sophisticated enemy operation. Sarah's eyes widened, but that would mean you arrested an innocent woman. You fell for enemy propaganda. Your heroic exposure becomes a tragic mistake. Your career takes a hit, but the heat comes off our family. They become victims instead of fools. My career is already destroyed, Sarah said quietly. Oh, I'm famous. The cop who chose duty over family. But do you know what that means in practice? No partner trusts me. Everyone wonders when I'll turn them in for something. I've caught 3 major cases that all happen to involve family betrayals. They've typecast me as the heartless cop. Sarah. I'll do it, she interrupted. God, yes, I'll do it. Let me be the fool instead of the villain. Let Mom and Dad believe you were innocent. It won't bring you back, but maybe they can stop hating themselves for loving you. The timer on my phone showed 10 seconds. There's a drop location in your gym locker. Everything you need will be there tomorrow. Make it convincing. Joy, wait. But I was already moving, slipping out the door as my handler's voice crackled through my earpiece, demanding a status report. I gave one truthful in facts, but omitting the crucial 60 seconds that might save my family's souls. 48 hours later, Sarah held a press conference that shocked the nation. Standing beside the evidence she'd discovered, she revealed how Marcus Harrison, currently serving 25 years for espionage, had orchestrated an elaborate frame job against her sister. I failed in my duty. She said tears genuine even if the context was false. I let personal jealousy cloud my judgment. I believed fabricated evidence because I wanted to believe it. My sister died in disgrace because I was too proud to verify through proper channels. The media explosion was immediate. The hero cop became the tragic figure, the cautionary tale about rush to judgment. Some praised her honesty, others condemned her incompetence. But everyone suddenly viewed Joy Martinez differently, not a fraud, but a victim. My parents' reaction was volcanic. You killed her, my mother screamed at Sarah in footage captured by neighbors. She ran because of you. She died alone because you had to be the star. My baby is gone because you couldn't stand living in her shadow. The reconciliation I'd hoped for transformed into deeper fracture. Sarah took the abuse, absorbed it, weaponized it into her cover. Every harsh word from family reinforced her image as the detective who'd made a terrible mistake. But the real intelligence value came from the response. The documentary producers suddenly backed off their funding, mysteriously vanishing. The conspiracy theorists split into factions, those who believed the new narrative and those convinced it was another layer of deception. The chaos made any truth impossible to determine. Brilliant work, Morrison commented during my next briefing. You've created a hall of mirrors. No one knows what to believe anymore. My family still hates each other, I pointed out. Just for different reasons now. But they're safe. The foreign intelligence services have abandoned the Martinez angle as too compromised. You've successfully burned your own legend so thoroughly that no one wants to touch it. Success tasted like ashes. I'd saved my family from external threats by ensuring they'd destroy each other internally. The next phase required deeper cover. The leak inside our organization hadn't been plugged. Someone was still shopping classified information about Operation Firebreak. I went underground, completely investigating my own colleagues while maintaining my cover as an internal affairs agent. 3 months into the investigation, I found the source. Technical specialist Rodriguez, the man who'd worked beside me during the original operation. Financial pressures, a sick daughter, medical bills that tripled his salary, desperation making him vulnerable to recruitment. I sat in my car outside his house watching him play with his daughter through the window. 6-year-old leukemia responding well to experimental treatment he couldn't have afforded on government pay. The tactical solution was simple. Arrest him, interrogate him, roll up his contacts. The human solution was impossible. Let him continue selling secrets to save his child's life. I called Morrison. I found our leak. Rodriguez, we know. We've known for 2 months. My blood chilled. You knew. We fed him specific information to trace where it went. His handlers are more valuable than he is, but his usefulness is ending. His daughter's treatment concludes next month. After that, he's a liability. Unless someone gives him a reason to stay loyal, a conscience attack perhaps, driven by guilt over betraying the colleague who saved his daughter's life. I understood. They wanted me to flip him, use our connection to turn him into a double agent, use his daughter's life as leverage for loyalty. There's another way, I said. Let him think I'm investigating him. I'll approach his Agent Walsh suspicious but not certain. He'll panic, make mistakes, reveal his handlers without realizing it, then offer him a deal cooperation for immunity. And if he refuses, he won't, not with his daughter's life in the balance. The operation took 3 weeks. Rodriguez crumbled under pressure, gave up his handlers, agreed to feed them false information in exchange for protection. He never knew the investigation was orchestrated, that his discovery was planned, that his redemption was another manipulation. But something unexpected happened during his confession. He broke down completely, talking about the colleague he'd betrayed me. Joy Martinez was the best of us. He sobbed to Agent Walsh, not knowing she sat across from him. She saved my team in Karachi, talked us through an ambush using nothing but voice commands and satellite imagery, lost her cover to save others, and I sold her out for money. I'm the reason she's dead. I maintained my cover, offering professional sympathy while my heart cracked, another person carrying guilt for my manufactured death. That night, I made an unsanctioned decision. Using secure channels, I arranged for an anonymous donation to Rodriguez's daughter's medical fund, enough to cover any future treatment, removing the financial pressure that had turned a good man into a traitor. Morrison said nothing when the transaction appeared in our logs. Some redemptions happened in shadows, unmarked and unacknowledged. The investigation continued. Each thread pulled revealed more damage from firebreak careers, destroyed operations, canceled assets burned, but also lives saved attacks, prevented networks dismantled, the ledger balanced in blood and sacrifice. Sarah's public martyrdom opened unexpected doors. The federal task force Sarah had once dreamed of joining reached out, offering her a position, not despite her failure with me, but because of it. They valued an officer who could admit mistakes, who understood the cost of rushed judgments. She called our mother before accepting, trying once more to bridge the gap. "I'm joining a federal task force," she said over speakerphone I monitored. "Hunting real threats, not imaginary ones. I want to make up for killing your sister." Our mother's voice was ice. "There's no making up for that, Sarah. Take your new job, build your career on Joy's corpse. Just don't expect forgiveness." Sarah took the position anyway. Within months, she was their top investigator, channeling guilt into purpose. Every case she solved was penance for the sister she'd failed. The task force never knew their star recruit was already a federal asset, her entire redemption arc orchestrated from shadows. I watched from my shifting covers as Rodriguez fed false intelligence to his handlers, as Sarah built her new career as my parents aged in their grief. The redemption attempts were working, not healing wounds, but transforming them into useful scars. "Your family is professionally successful," Morrison noted during a briefing. "Sarah's solve rate is exceptional. Rodriguez has become our most valuable double agent. Even your parents' victim advocacy group has saved lives. Tragedy breeding purpose." Is that supposed to comfort me? It's supposed to remind you that intelligence work isn't about comfort. It's about effect. Your sacrifice created ripples that saved hundreds of lives. Your family's pain prevented thousands of deaths. The equation balances. But equations were for mathematicians. In the human world, my mother still cried over photos of her innocent daughter. My father still wrote letters to me he'd never send. Sarah still recorded messages she immediately deleted, pouring out guilt and love to a sister she'd never see again. And I sat in shadows, orchestrating their redemption while denying my own. Because in our world, the greatest act of love was letting those you cherished hate you for their own protection. The redemption attempt was succeeding. It just looked like damnation from the inside. 2 years after my manufactured death, Denver had transformed. The skyline showed new construction, the economy had shifted, but the coffee shop on 16th Street remained unchanged, the same worn brick, the same local art, the same corner booth where Sarah and I used to meet before our lives exploded. I sat there now as Agent Sarah Walsh reviewing Rodriguez's latest intelligence feed on my tablet. His handlers still believed they owned him, unaware that every piece of information he passed was carefully crafted fiction designed to waste their resources. His daughter was thriving the anonymous medical fund, ensuring she'd never want for treatment. My own handler, Agent Phillips, appeared on my screen. "Martinez, we have a situation. Your sister's task force just stumbled onto something significant." Sarah's federal career had exceeded all projections. Her team specialized in investigating domestic threats with foreign connections, a role she was uniquely qualified for after living through Firebreak. But their latest case had uncovered something unexpected. They found a cell planning to infiltrate military families, Phillips continued. Their primary intelligence came from studying the Martinez case. Your exposure taught them our vulnerabilities. The irony cut deep. My sacrifice had saved lives, but also provided a template for future attacks. Our enemies learned from our successes as much as our failures. "What do you need from me?" Advisory role, deep background. Help them without revealing yourself. Can you handle being that close to your sister? I looked out the window at the Denver Federal Building where Sarah now worked. 18 floors up corner office, she'd risen fast on the fuel of guilt and purpose. I can handle it. The first briefing happened 3 days later. I entered the federal building as Agent Walsh, my altered appearance, and 3 years of living this identity making me unrecognizable. The task force conference room buzzed with energy. 12 agents analyzing intelligence, Sarah at the center directing traffic. She looked healthier than the last time I'd seen her. The hollow desperation had filled out into determined purpose, but her eyes still carried shadows that makeup couldn't hide. "Team, this is Agent Walsh from Internal Review," Sarah announced as I entered. "She's been tracking similar patterns in other cases. Agent Walsh, welcome to Task Force Mockingbird." I nodded professionally, taking my seat at the table. Being this close to Sarah without acknowledging our connection felt like swallowing broken glass. But she didn't even flicker. 3 years of living lies had made her as good as any trained operative. The intelligence was disturbing. Foreign services had studied Firebreak, obsessively identifying our counterintelligence techniques and developing workarounds. They'd learned that targeting military families through personal connections was effective but dangerous, so they'd evolved. "They're not recruiting family members anymore," Sarah explained, pulling up charts. "They're creating them. Long-term infiltration through marriages, adoptions, even artificial insemination, using stolen genetic material from service members." My blood chilled. They were playing a generational game, now planting sleepers who wouldn't activate for decades. "The Martinez case taught them patience," another agent added. "Quick operations get exposed. But who suspects the wife of 20 years, the adopted son who grew up American?" I contributed, carefully sharing insights without revealing too much knowledge. Sarah accepted my input professionally, but I caught her studying me when she thought I wasn't looking. Something familiar nagging at her trained instincts. The operation expanded over weeks. We identified 17 potential infiltration attempts across the country. Each required delicate handling. How do you tell someone their spouse might be a sleeper agent, that their adopted child could be a future intelligence asset? Sarah excelled at these conversations, drawing on her own experience of family betrayal. She'd become the agent who understood that love and deception could coexist, that the people we trusted most could harbor the deepest secrets. One night, working late in the federal building, we found ourselves alone in the conference room. Sarah stood at the window looking out at Denver's lights, and for a moment, her professional mask slipped. "My sister would have loved this view," she said quietly. "Joy always said Denver looked best at night when the lights made it seem bigger than it was." I stayed silent, but my hands stilled on the keyboard. 3 years next month," she continued. 3 years since I destroyed my family for a greater good. I'm still not sure I understand. Do you know what that's like? Agent Walsh, living with necessary evil." "Yes," I said simply, "I do." She turned, studying me with those investigators' eyes. "You remind me of someone, something about your voice." "I get that often, common vocal patterns in this region." Sarah nodded, but doubt lingered in her expression. She returned to the files, but I caught her glancing at me throughout the night. The recognition was building despite the physical changes. 3 years couldn't erase 28 years of sisterhood. The breakthrough came from Rodriguez's intelligence. His handlers, believing they had a reliable source, shared details about the next phase of infiltrations. The wedding was scheduled for next month, a Marine captain marrying a woman who'd spent 5 years building the perfect American identity. "We can't stop the wedding without revealing our knowledge," Sarah reasoned during the briefing, "but we can turn it to our advantage. Let them marry, monitor everything, use them to feed false intelligence back." "Like firebreak," I said without thinking. The room went quiet. Every agent turned to look at me. Sarah's face went pale. "You're familiar with firebreak?" she asked carefully. "Everyone in internal review knows about firebreak. I covered. The Martinez case is required study. Brilliant counterintelligence hidden in apparent disaster." "Brilliant," Sarah repeated flatly. "That's one word for it." The meeting continued, but Sarah watched me with new intensity. After everyone left, she cornered me in the hallway. "Coffee?" she asked. "I think we should talk." We went to the shop on 16th Street. She led me directly to our old booth without asking muscle memory guiding her feet. We sat in silence while the barista prepared our drinks, Sarah's usual complicated order, and without thinking, I ordered Joy's favorite. "Vanilla latte extra shot oat milk," Sarah said quietly. "Interesting choice." "It's popular." It was my sister's drink every time, even when I mocked her for the oat milk. Tears gathered in her eyes. Joy. The word hung between us like a live wire. I could deny it, maintain cover, keep the operation intact, or I could give my sister what she'd needed for 3 years, proof that sacrifice had meaning. "We have 4 minutes before this conversation becomes a security breach," I said quietly. Sarah's sob was immediate, her hand flying to her mouth. "Oh God, oh my God, you're alive, you're here, you're..." "Agent Sarah Walsh, Internal Review. No relation to Joy Martinez, who disappeared in shame 3 years ago. That's the only truth that keeps us both breathing." "How?" she whispered. "Why?" "Because firebreak needed a ghost to stay buried. Because the work required someone who didn't exist to ensure others could. Because you gave me the perfect death, and I've been using it to save lives ever since." Sarah reached across the table, gripping my hands. Hers shook while mine stayed steady, 3 years of practice at feeling nothing. "I've carried this guilt." "Good. It made you brilliant. The task force, your solve rate, the lives you've saved, all fueled by believing you killed me. That guilt is operational gold. Don't waste it on truth. That's cold, even for you. That's survival in our world." I squeezed her hands once, then pulled away. 2 minutes. "The family. Should I tell them?" "Never. They're safer believing the lie. You're stronger carrying the weight, and I'm more effective as a ghost than I ever was alive." "This is killing me, Joy." "No, it's transforming you. You're becoming what I always was, someone willing to sacrifice everything for shadows and silence. The only question is whether you can handle the weight." Sarah straightened and I saw steel resurface in her spine. I can handle it. For you, for them, for everyone we protect. Then we never had this conversation. Agent Walsh appreciated the coffee and professional discussion. Officer Chen continues her exemplary service, and Joy Martinez stays dead. One more minute, Sarah said urgently. Are you happy? Wherever you are, whoever you are you at peace? I considered the question. Peace was a luxury I'd traded for purpose years ago. But watching Sarah transform from jealous sister to guardian of shadows, seeing Rodriguez save his daughter while serving justice, knowing my parents had found meaning in their grief, there was satisfaction in that. I'm effective, I answered. In our world, that's the closest to happy we get. The timer on my phone chimed. 4 minutes elapsed. I stood to leave, but Sarah's words stopped me. The agent who brings me coffee sometimes, she orders vanilla lattes with oat milk, sits in this exact booth, never says much, but somehow always knows what I need to hear. Strange coincidence. A ghost of a smile touched my lips. The world's full of strange coincidences, Officer Chen. Best not to examine them too closely. I left her there, walking back into the Denver night as Agent Walsh. Behind me, Sarah sat with her coffee and her tears, and her terrible, beautiful secret. She'd join me in the shadows now, knowing what few did, that love sometimes meant letting people hate you, that sacrifice looked like betrayal, that the greatest victories were the ones nobody celebrated. The task force would stop the infiltrations. Rodriguez would continue feeding false intelligence. My parents would advocate for military families. Sarah would solve cases with the fury of manufactured guilt. And I would coordinate it all from Shadows the Ghost in the Machine, ensuring the Martinez tragedy kept saving lives. It wasn't redemption that implied forgiveness we couldn't afford. It was transformation pain into purpose loss, into leverage. The new beginning wasn't about healing. It was about accepting that some wounds were worth keeping open if they bled in service of something greater. Agent Walsh had work to do. Joy Martinez would stay dead. It was enough. It had to be. 5 years after that night in Denver, I stood in Arlington National Cemetery, watching from a respectful distance as my family gathered around a different grave. Not mine, I didn't have one. This was grandmother's, the former OSS operative who'd kept her own secrets until the end. The years had softened some edges. My parents looked older but steadier, their victim advocacy group having helped dozens of military families navigate loss and betrayal. Thomas had published a book about trust and verification in the digital age, using our family's story as a cautionary tale. Even Marcus, still in federal prison, had become an unwitting asset, his testimony helping convict 17 foreign operatives. But it was Sarah who'd transformed most completely. Now Deputy Director of Task Force Mockingbird, she'd become legendary in intelligence circles. The agent who'd learned from catastrophic failure, who understood the personal cost of rushed judgment, who could spot infiltration attempts others missed because she'd lived through one. Her team had prevented 43 operations targeting military families, saved countless lives, all fueled by the guilt of destroying her sister. I watched her place flowers on grandmother's grave, whispering something I couldn't hear. Then she straightened her eyes, scanning the cemetery with practiced awareness. They passed over me without recognition. Agent Sarah Walsh had perfected her appearance, and 5 years had made the disguise into reality. My handler's voice crackled through my earpiece. "Martinez, we have a situation." I turned away from my family, returning to the work that defined me. But Sarah's voice stopped me. "Agent Walsh." I turned back. She stood 20 feet away, professional distance, maintained her expression neutral. To anyone watching, we were 2 federal agents who happened to cross paths at a cemetery. Deputy Director Chen, I acknowledged, visiting someone. My grandmother. She served in ways nobody knew about until after she died. You, research. Historical patterns in intelligence family targeting. The old files have lessons for current operations. Sarah nodded, the conversation perfectly normal for two professionals in our field, but her eyes held depths strangers wouldn't see. "There's a joint briefing next week," she said. "Mockingbird and internal review comparing notes on infiltration patterns. You should attend." "I'll check my schedule." "Do that." She paused. "The coffee shop on 16th still makes excellent vanilla lattes, in case you're ever in Denver. I'll keep that in mind." She walked away, returning to our family. I saw her whisper something to our mother, who smiled sadly and patted her arm. They'd found peace in their fractured relationship, united by shared loss, even if they couldn't agree on blame. The briefing notification appeared on my phone within hours. Operation Ghost Protocol, a joint task force initiative to create a permanent counterintelligence unit focused on family infiltration. Sarah's team would provide field expertise. Internal review would handle oversight. We'd be working together officially, our manufactured distance, now professional proximity. Morrison herself called that night. "Martinez, it's time for your final evolution. We're creating a new position, Director of Family Security Operations, public-facing permanent, requiring someone who understands both the operational and personal costs of infiltration. That would burn Agent Walsh's cover permanently. Yes, but it would birth something more valuable. A known guardian someone infiltrators would have to account for. Hiding in shadows has served its purpose, but sometimes the greatest deterrent is visible presence." "What about my identity?" "Agent Sarah Walsh has an impeccable 5-year record. Decorated service, unquestionable expertise, no connection to Joy Martinez. You'd keep the name, the history we've built. Only now, instead of investigating failures, you'd be preventing them." It was an ending and a beginning. Joy Martinez would stay dead, but the operative she'd become would step into the light. Not as herself, that sacrifice was permanent, but as someone forged in the crucible of necessary deception. My family will work with Agent Walsh regularly. Your sister already respects her. Your parents will appreciate anyone protecting military families. You'll be in their lives, just not as their daughter. The cruelty and kindness of it took my breath away. To see them regularly, to protect them directly, but never to be known. The ultimate cover, hiding in plain sight as someone else. I accept. The transition took months. Agent Walsh's promotion made waves in intelligence circles. The creation of family security operations drew praise from military leadership and scrutiny from those who preferred shadows to spotlights. But the effect was immediate. 3 infiltration attempts abandoned when operatives realized they'd face dedicated counterintelligence. The first official meeting with Sarah was carefully choreographed. Deputy Director Chen and Director Walsh discussing operational integration. Professional respect, evident personal connection invisible. We built protocols that turned our pain into institutional knowledge. My parents attended the unit's inaugural ceremony. They sat in the front row, advocates for families like theirs, unaware their lost daughter stood at the podium. My mother even smiled when I mentioned the importance of verification before accusation. My father nodded when I spoke about the cost of rush judgment. "We've learned from tragedies like the Martinez case," I said, my voice steady despite the weight. "Where family bonds were exploited, trust was weaponized, and love became liability. Our mission is to ensure no family suffers that manipulation again." Applause filled the auditorium. Sarah caught my eye from her seat, the slightest nod, acknowledging the perfect irony. Joy Martinez's destruction had created the very unit that would prevent others from sharing her fate. After the ceremony, my parents approached. Up close for the first time in 5 years, I saw how grief had carved new lines in their faces, but also how purpose had filled the hollow spaces. "Director Walsh," my mother said, shaking my hand. "Thank you for this, for understanding that families are often the first casualties in intelligence wars." "Every family matters," I replied. "Every loss teaches us how to prevent the next one." My father studied me with eyes that had once seen through every childhood lie. But Agent Walsh, was no lie anymore. She was who I'd become, forged in the fire of Joy Martinez's ashes. "You remind me of someone," he said quietly. "Something about your dedication." "I get that often. Intelligence work attracts a certain type." They moved on, but not before my mother touched my arm. "The work you're doing would have saved our daughter. She was innocent, manipulated by forces she couldn't understand. At least her tragedy serves a purpose now." I watched them leave my heart, simultaneously breaking and healing. They'd found meaning in their loss, even if the truth they believed was another layer of deception. Sarah lingered after everyone left. We stood in the empty auditorium, 5 years of lies and sacrifice between us. "So this is how it ends," she said. "Joy stays dead, but her ghost gets to protect others." "This is how it begins," I corrected. "Agent Walsh and Deputy Director Chen building something from ruins, using what we learned in darkness to protect those in light." "Can you live with it, seeing them regularly being so close but forever stranger? Can you live with knowing the truth while they believe lies?" She smiled sadly. "I've been living with it for 5 years. At least now I have a partner who understands the weight." We'd found our resolution not in truth revealed, but in lies transformed into purpose. The Martinez family tragedy had become institutional memory, protecting future families from similar fates. Sarah and I would work together openly, sisters hidden in plain sight, our bond invisible but unbreakable. That night, I returned to my apartment, Agent Walsh's apartment filled with 5 years of carefully constructed life. But on the hidden shelf behind false backing, I kept one thing from before a photo of Sarah and me at her police academy graduation, both of us young and proud and ignorant of what was coming. I touched the photo gently, then returned it to hiding. Tomorrow, Director Walsh had meetings with military leadership about new protection protocols. Deputy Director Chen would brief her team on emerging threats. The Martinez parents would continue their advocacy, never knowing their daughters worked together daily. The resolution wasn't clean. It wasn't happy in any traditional sense. My family still grieved a daughter they'd never really lost. Sarah still carried guilt for a betrayal that saved lives. I still lived as someone else, forever exiled from my own identity. But from our pain had grown purpose. From our loss had come protection for others. The sacrifice had meaning, even if those who'd sacrificed could never claim credit. In my secure files, I kept Sarah's recorded messages, the ones she thought she'd deleted, pouring out grief and love to a sister she believed gone. Sometimes late at night, I listened to them, reminding myself why the price was worth paying. "I love you wherever you are," her voice would say. "Your sister always." And in the morning, Director Walsh and Deputy Director Chen would continue their work protecting families who'd never know how much their guardians had lost to keep them safe. It was enough. It had finally become enough. The ghosts we'd created had found their purpose. The lies we'd lived had become foundations for truth. And somewhere in the shadow between Agent Walsh and Joy Martinez, I'd found a way to serve both duty and family, even if they could never know it. Operation Firebreak had ended. Operation Ghost Protocol had begun. And in the space between ending and beginning, 2 sisters had found a way to save each other without ever admitting they'd been drowning. 10 years after the arrest. The coffee shop on 16th Street hosted its usual morning crowd as Director Walsh and Deputy Director Chen met for their weekly briefing. To observers, we were colleagues who developed an efficient working relationship over 5 years of collaboration. The truth, as always, was more complex. 17 families protected this month. Sarah reported, sliding a file across the table. "Your early warning protocols are working." I reviewed the data with satisfaction. Each prevented infiltration was vindication for everything we'd sacrificed. The Family Security Operations Unit had become the gold standard studied by allied nations and feared by enemies. "Any word from the advocacy group?" I asked casually. "Mom and Dad are presenting at the Pentagon next week. Their Victim Impact Program just got federal funding." Sarah smiled. "They're calling it the Joy Martinez Memorial Initiative. supporting families who've lost members to deception and infiltration. The irony was perfect. I was memorializing myself while sitting across from my sister, alive, but forever unreachable. They'd be proud, I said carefully, using their loss to protect others. Joy would be proud, Sarah corrected. She always wanted to make a difference, just probably not like this. My phone buzzed with a priority alert. New intelligence suggested a cell planning something ambitious, not just infiltration, but replacement, taking military family members and substituting them with trained assets. The evolution of enemy tactics never stopped. Duty calls, I said, standing. Walsh, Sarah said quietly, using the name that had become more real than my own. Same time next week? Always, I promised. Walking back to the federal building, I passed a recruitment poster for Family Security Operations. Protect those who protect us. It proclaimed, featuring a stock photo of a military family, anonymous faces representing all we guarded. My reflection in the window showed Agent Sarah Walsh, professional, dedicated 5 years into a decorated career. No trace of Joy Martinez remained, except in the eyes, the same ones that had once looked back from family photos, now watching from behind a stranger's face. A young analyst rushed up, eager and nervous. Director Walsh, the Pentagon, briefing on the replacement cell. Should I prepare the standard protocols? No, I decided. Set up a joint operation with Mockingbird and reach out to the Martinez Memorial Initiative. Their perspective on family vulnerabilities could be valuable. The analyst hurried off, unaware she'd just arranged for me to work alongside my parents in protecting families like ours from threats like we'd faced. The circle was complete, the destroyed family now saving others from destruction. That night in my apartment filled with Agent Walsh's life, I recorded my own message. Not to Sarah, we'd evolved past needing words, but to the void where Joy Martinez had been, to the family that mourned her, to the sacrifice that had birthed purpose. 10 years. I spoke to the emptiness. 10 years of being dead so others could live. 10 years of lies that became truth. Was it worth it? The answer came not in words, but in numbers. 800 families protected. 43 infiltration networks dismantled. Thousands of lives saved by protocols written in our pain. And 2 sisters who'd found a way to work together despite the impossible space between them. I deleted the recording as Sarah had deleted hers. Some truths were too heavy for even encrypted files. But in the morning, Director Walsh would meet Deputy Director Chen for coffee, and they'd continue the work born from tragedy. Joy Martinez was dead. Agent Sarah Walsh was thriving. And somewhere between the two, a ghost had found peace in purpose, family in distance, and love in letting go. The sacrifice was complete. The mission continued. And in a coffee shop on 16th Street, 2 sisters saved the world, one conversation at a time, hidden in plain sight together, and a part lost and found in the space between truth and necessary lies. It was enough. It would always be enough. Because in the end, the greatest love was protecting those who could never know they needed protecting, even if they were protecting them from the truth of how much you loved them. The ghost smiled and got back to work. Thank you for joining me on this journey of sacrifice, family, and the prices we pay for the shadows that keep others safe. If you've ever wondered about the cost of keeping secrets from those you love, or if you've struggled with choosing between truth and protection, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What would you choose, a comfortable lie that keeps your family safe, or a dangerous truth that sets them free? Share your perspective, and let's discuss the impossible choices that define us. If this story touched you, please consider sharing it with someone who understands that sometimes the greatest love looks like letting go. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories that explore the space between duty and desire, between family and purpose. Until next time, remember, the most powerful truths are often the ones we can never speak. Like this story if you believe some sacrifices are worth making. Subscribe to follow more tales from the shadows, and share to honor those who serve in silence, protecting us from threats we'll never know existed.